It might seem like a perfect fantasy to be born into royalty, but even with all the fancy titles and lavish castles, they still deal with plenty of human tragedy.
Her sister may have gotten the crown, but she got the public's adoration. This rebel princess lived life on her own terms, so did she go out the same way? Princess Margaret's death on February 9, 2002 was announced by Queen Elizabeth II's press secretary in a statement that noted she died at 6:30 a.m. and went peacefully in her sleep. She was 71 years old. Margaret was hospitalised at the King Edward VII Hospital at the time of her death, having been brought there a few hours earlier due to a stroke she had the previous day. The stroke then led to heart problems, the statement explained. The presence of Margaret's children, Lord Linley and Lady Sarah Chatto, at the time of her death, suggests that the family was aware of the seriousness of Margaret's health complications. While Queen Elizabeth was not present at the time of her sister's death, the statement revealed the Queen was kept fully informed throughout the night. Princess Margaret had been in poor health for years leading up to her death. She'd had pneumonia in 1993, and a stroke in 1998 led to a slight speech impediment. The following year, she sustained severe burns on her feet in what the royal family's official website described as a bathroom accident. The incident left her severely injured and made walking difficult. She made a few public appearances after that and, when she did, she was seen in a wheelchair. Margaret also reportedly experienced depression in the 1970s, with The Guardian saying that she sought psychiatric treatment for it. While there were reports that she had another bout with depression at the turn of the millennium, this was denied by official royal sources. According to royal biographer Andrew Morton, Margaret was offered little support for her mental health. He wrote in Elizabeth and Margaret, The Intimate World of the Windsor Sisters, "Let's face it, Margaret had depression, and in the royal family, you are not allowed to be depressed. They lived in a world where illness was dealt with by going for a long walk, and mental illness was ignored." 4 years before her death, while on vacation in Mustique, Margaret had a mild stroke. The Independent reported at the time that she was flown to Barbados for treatment. The outlet speculated that Margaret's chain smoking, at one point in her life she smoked as many as 60 cigarettes a day, could have contributed to the health scare. While the princess had given up smoking by the time of her first stroke, she reportedly began smoking at the tender age of 15. She was also a heavy drinker for much of her life, another risk factor for stroke. According to the official website of the royal family, Princess Margaret suffered 2 additional strokes before her death, one in 2000 and another in 2001. While the death of a beloved member of the royal family is often marked by a large state funeral, Princess Margaret did not want such fanfare when she was laid to rest. Instead, she requested to have a private funeral, which was only attended by her relatives and people who'd been close to her. An official period of royal mourning was declared on September 9th, the day of her death, and lasted until her funeral on September 15th, per the royal family's website. While Princess Margaret had a private funeral, a public memorial service was held for everyone else who wanted to mourn her death. Her friend, Lady Anne Glenconnor, told the Scotsman ahead of the service, "I think she wanted her family and her friends at her funeral. Obviously, later on there will be a memorial service when her charities will be represented, but for her actual funeral, she wanted it to be as private as possible." And although the funeral was private, it was quite a large affair. There were nearly 500 people present at the service at Windsor Castle's St George's Chapel, a crowd that included family, friends, and members of Margaret's staff. In a strange twist of fate, Princess Margaret's funeral was held on the 50th anniversary of her father, King George VI's own burial. The memorial service was held at noon on April 19, 2002 at Westminster Abbey. The programme for the event reveals that Princess Margaret had a hand in planning it. The programme, which also reveals that she handpicked the choirs that sang at the service, reads, "The service is set around the Requiem by Gabrielle Fauré, in accordance with the wishes of Her Royal Highness the Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon." Among the select list of mourners invited to attend Princess Margaret's private funeral were her ex-husband, Anthony Armstrong-Jones, Earl of Snowdon, and even her ex-boyfriend, Roddy Llewellyn. Llewellyn was a subject of fascination to the press during his relationship with the princess, much to the consternation of the royal family. According to the BBC, the two met in 1973 while she was still married to the Earl. Once the news of her affair broke, a scandal erupted and her marriage ended.
George V set these kind of standards, and he used to pick out these things. And whatever they did, he'd point out what they hadn't done right.
Princess Margaret became the first member of the royal family to divorce in hundreds of years, the last royal to do so being King Henry VIII, who infamously created the Church of England in the 16th century in order to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, to marry Anne Boleyn. Adding to the scandal was the fact that Llewellyn was in his 20s when the couple became involved, 17 years younger than Margaret herself. The relationship lasted 8 years, until Llewellyn broke up with the princess to marry someone else. Margaret remained on good terms with Llewellyn and his bride. Margaret's friend, Lady Anne Glenconner, said in the documentary Elizabeth, Our Queen, that Queen Elizabeth approached her after Margaret's funeral to thank her for introducing the couple. She recalled the Queen saying, I'd just like to say, Anne, it was rather difficult at moments, but he made her really happy. The British royal family is known for keeping a stiff upper lip, no matter how tough things get. Princess Margaret and her sister were quite close though, and her death devastated the monarch. She expressed her heartbreak stoically in the public announcement of Margaret's death, which mentioned her great sadness. But her actions at the private funeral held for Princess Margaret showed just how distraught she really was over losing her sister. Princess Margaret's friend, Princess Josephine Lowenstein, said in Elizabeth, Our Queen, that Margaret told her she'd only seen Elizabeth cry once in their entire lives. Tears were rare for the Queen, but she lost her composure at Margaret's funeral, crying in front of everyone. Ronaldo Herrier, a friend of the royal family, wrote in Vanity Fair, I think it was the only time anyone ever saw the Queen show her emotions in public, never explaining anything to the world. What she feels, or why she does what she does, is part of her greatness. But for a few minutes that day, as she stood by the steps of St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, watching her sister's coffin being borne away, her eyes betrayed her. In another break with royal tradition, Princess Margaret asked to be cremated rather than buried. While there is no official ban on royal cremation, the Scotsman reported at the time that it was believed no member of the royal family had been cremated in decades, since Queen Victoria's daughter, Princess Louise, Duchess of Argyll, died in 1939. Lady Anne Glenconner said that Margaret did not want to be buried at the royal burial ground at Frogmore, explaining that she found Frogmore very gloomy. Instead, Margaret's ashes were laid to rest at the royal crypt at St. George's Chapel, the final resting place of her father, King George VI. Glenconner explained, I think she'd like to be with the late king, which she will now be.
Because she wanted to be buried between her parents. There was any room, really, for ashes.
Princess Margaret championed many causes throughout her life, with the royal family's website citing her involvement in more than 80 organisations. Some of her favourites were highlighted after her death via a memorial website, with the family asking mourners wishing to honour the princess to make donations on her behalf. Mourners wanting to offer their condolences were also asked to email them in. Those wishing to pay their respects in person were invited to write in the condolence books set up at St. James's Palace. One mourner signed the condolence book and told the press, Princess Margaret was symbolic of correctness, strength of character, and she had a mind of her own, but great respect for Her Majesty the Queen and the royal institution. She was a trooper. Princess Margaret's death was already a huge blow to the royal family, but her death was soon followed by another loss for the royals. Princess Margaret and Queen Elizabeth II's mother, also named Elizabeth, died the following month, on March 30th, 2002. Buckingham Palace said in a statement, The Queen, with the greatest sadness, has asked for the following announcement to be made immediately. Her beloved mother, Queen Elizabeth, died peacefully in her sleep this afternoon at Royal Lodge, Windsor. Members of the royal family have been informed. She was 101 years old and had been ill for some time, having had a chest infection in December, but was still adamant about attending Princess Margaret's funeral.
The Queen Mother was a wheelchair, and when the coffin went by, she tried to stand up, be standing when Princess Margaret's coffin went.
The back-to-back tragedies marked a difficult time for the royal family, especially as Princess Margaret's memorial service was held just 10 days after her mother was laid to rest.
Princess Margaret was Queen Elizabeth II's younger sister and only sibling who seemed to experience many tough times throughout her life. While Netflix's The Crown has delivered a mostly accurate portrayal of Margaret's life, her true story is well worth knowing. Being the kid sister to the eventual Queen was not without its challenges. The Queen, a 1996 biography of Queen Elizabeth II, quotes Princess Margaret as saying, "When my sister and I were growing up, she was made out to be the goody-goody one. That was boring, so the press tried to make out I was wicked as hell." Although Margaret obviously did not agree with that assessment of her character, it's true that she and her sister were opposites. Christopher Warwick, author of the authorized biography Princess Margaret, A Life of Contrasts, spoke about the royal siblings' relationship during an interview with The Cut. According to the author, the Queen, even when they were girls, always kept an eye on her sister because Margaret could be wayward. She could be cheeky. She could be naughty. In terms of personalities, Elizabeth and Margaret were as different as chalk and cheese. Princess Margaret was beloved by her father, King George VI. As a courtier recalled to The Telegraph in 2002, he used to look at her as if he couldn't believe this enchanting thing was his daughter. The daughter of one of the late king's courtiers added the observation that, quote, "The king spoiled her dreadfully, but if court gossip is to be believed, her father was one of the only ones in the royal circle who felt so smitten by her." The courtier's daughter revealed, "The courtiers didn't like her much. They found her amusing, but she used to keep her parents and everyone waiting for dinner because she wanted to listen to the end of a program on the wireless. I remember my father despairing of her." Even Margaret and Princess Elizabeth II's governess, Marion Crawford, thought the young princess crowded out her older sister. According to The Telegraph, Crawford was quoted as saying, "We really are trying to separate them a bit because Princess Margaret does draw all the attention and Elizabeth lets her do that." Crawford would even conspire with friends to exclude Margaret from party invitations so Elizabeth could attend without her. King George VI was known to say of his two daughters that Elizabeth was his bride and Margaret was his joy. And just as King George VI loved his girls, they too loved him. Margaret was especially close to the king. Biographer Christopher Warwick told The Cut, "The love of her life was one man, and he was the man who died before she was 22. And that man was her father, the king, whom she adored." On February 6, 1952, King George died suddenly at the age of 56. According to his biography, his death was later determined to be caused by a coronary thrombosis. Sometime before, the king had been diagnosed with lung cancer and had one of his lungs removed. King George is thought to have passed away in his sleep in the early morning hours. The night before, he spent time playing with his grandchildren, Charles and Anne, and dining with Margaret, his beloved daughter. Princess Margaret began a secret relationship with Group Captain Peter Townsend in the early 50s. Townsend was married, but later divorced his wife and proposed to the princess. Margaret said yes, but they continued to keep their romance quiet. If Margaret were to marry a divorcee, it could appear as if Queen Elizabeth condoned divorce, something that was very much disapproved of by the Church of England, not to mention monumentally scandalous to the press. But with their plan to marry, the couple couldn't keep it a secret forever. Due to the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, Margaret would need to seek the Queen's permission to marry. If Elizabeth denied her request, Margaret could then petition Parliament after 1 year's time. But this would likely have caused an even larger scandal, prolonging the drama in the public eye and doing untold damage to the royal family's image.
The Queen is temporal governor of the Church of England, and the Church of England would not recognise divorce.
In the end, Margaret and Townsend broke up. The princess issued a statement saying she'd resolved to put the Church's teachings about marriage and her duty to the Commonwealth above all else. In letters discovered decades later, Princess Margaret revealed to then Prime Minister Anthony Eden in 1955 that she planned to meet with Peter Townsend in order to properly decide whether she could or could not marry him. She revealed in one letter cited by the Telegraph, "The Queen of course knows I am writing to you about this, but of course no one else does. And as everything is so uncertain, I know you will regard it certainly as a confidence." Although Margaret may have seemed like she was pushed into breaking off her engagement with Townsend, these letters prove that Margaret made the final decision. The princess's authorized biographer, Christopher Warwick, confirmed to The Cut that, quote, "Peter Townsend was not the great love of her life. Still, ending the relationship couldn't have been easy, especially after the entire world knew of her and Townsend's affair." A year after issuing a statement about ending her relationship with Townsend, Margaret accepted a marriage proposal from her friend Billy Wallace. According to the Telegraph, Margaret reasoned to her pals that it was better to at least marry someone she liked rather than remain unmarried for any longer.
Congratulations.
Oh, Christ.
Despite Princess Margaret's decision to settle for Billy Wallace, the two did not marry. According to the Telegraph, the couple never made a formal engagement announcement because their relationship ended soon after they'd gotten engaged. Wallace apparently admitted to Margaret that he'd had a brief affair while vacationing in the Bahamas. He is quoted as saying, "I had my chance and blew it with my big mouth, or she would have become Mrs. Wallace and I would have been able to handle her." 2 years later, Margaret met photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones at a dinner party. Later, Armstrong Jones was hired to photograph Margaret, and their romance began. Anne de Courcy, author of Snowden, the biography, told Town & Country that the relationship was kept secret, saying, "Nobody knew about their relationship. There wasn't a whisper about it. It was as if they were hiding in plain sight." Because Armstrong Jones was not seen as a suitable match for the princess, the press didn't think much of him attending parties with Margaret. When the couple announced their engagement in 1960, royal courtiers were both shocked and displeased. They thought Margaret should have married someone of her own class, not a commoner. On May 6, 1960, Princess Margaret and Anthony Armstrong Jones, who then became known as Lord Snowden, married. But unfortunately, the princess didn't get her happily ever after. Anne de Courcy confirmed to Town & Country, "The first few years were wonderful. They had a lot in common. There was banter between them. He would help her with her speeches. The couple was perhaps too similar in some ways, both being strong-willed and used to getting what they wanted, and then work started to get in the way." In 1962, Margaret's husband took a job as the artistic advisor for the Sunday Times. He set up a workshop in the basement of Kensington Palace. But rather than using that as an opportunity to spend more time with Margaret, instead he seemed to be more focused on his work. In 1961, before their relationship took a turn for the worse, Anthony Armstrong Jones and Princess Margaret welcomed their first child, David. Soon after their second child, Sarah, was born in 1964, though, their relationship began faltering. According to the Evening Standard, Margaret caught her husband talking on the phone to a woman, and it was clear that they were more than just friends. It seems while Armstrong Jones was away for work, he was also involved in a series of flings with other women. But as upsetting as the affairs were to Margaret, she wasn't without her own share of guilt. According to Anne de Courcy, Margaret also engaged in her own set of affairs. Both Armstrong Jones and Margaret continued to have their separate affairs into the 70s, but they were able to keep their liaisons from the press. That is, until Margaret and her lover, landscape gardener Roddy Llewellyn, were photographed vacationing together in the Caribbean, and before long, their images were plastered on the covers of tabloids. Soon after Princess Margaret's affair with Roddy Llewellyn was made public, Anthony Armstrong Jones and the princess announced their separation. Some years later, in 1978, the couple revealed that they would be divorcing. The princess's spokesman told the New York Times, "The marriage has broken down and the couple have lived apart for 2 years. These are obviously the grounds for divorce. Naturally, Princess Margaret and Lord Snowden will continue to see each other on the same friendly basis as they have with each other over the last 2 years." When news of her affair broke, a member of parliament dubbed Margaret a parasite, while another labeled the princess an embarrassment to the whole nation. And that's just the kinds of things they said about her before she filed for divorce. After the divorce announcement was made public, John Lee, a Labour Party legislator, said he planned to question Parliament about Margaret's titles and funds. As the New York Times noted at the time, "That is a polite way of saying that Mr. Lee will demand a cut in her salary, which is paid by Parliament, and possibly a change in her royal position." Princess Margaret did not lose her royal title after divorcing Anthony Armstrong Jones, but she did lose and miss out on a lot of other things throughout her life. Royal expert Ingrid Seward told Express, When you look at Princess Margaret, she never found the happiness she should have done. She was always completely in the shadow of her elder sister, because her elder sister was queen, and Princess Anne said she used to feel like an also-ran. That is, a loser. Although she loved her big sis dearly, Margaret also felt that she could never quite compare to the queen. A confidant of Margaret later quoted her as saying, "I guess I'll be second best to my grave." Princess Margaret's life was not only marred by tragedy, but also by poor mental and physical health. As her marriage was collapsing in the 70s, Margaret was reported to have suffered a nervous breakdown. Margaret was also a heavy drinker, which led her to developing hepatitis in the mid-80s. In addition to drinking heavily, Margaret was a chain smoker, reportedly picking up the habit in her teenage years. After her father passed away, Margaret began to smoke even more, having as many as 60 cigarettes a day. By the early aughts, Margaret had suffered a cancer scare, repeated migraines, the aforementioned hepatitis, bronchitis, laryngitis, pneumonia, and several strokes. In 2002, after developing heart complications from a fourth stroke at the age of 71, it was announced that Margaret died peacefully in her sleep. Margaret's funeral was held on the 50th anniversary of her father's death and at the same location, St. George's Chapel in Windsor. You can't comb through Princess Margaret's life and ignore all the ways in which it was affected by tragedies, but that doesn't mean Margaret's life was all dark all the time. Although Christopher Warwick, her authorized biographer, did confirm that Margaret ended up alone in the end, there is more to her story than just her failed relationships and heartbreak. Warwick told The Cut, "It's sad, but the idea that she was a sad woman simply is not true. There were times when she was very, very lonely. But my goodness, she was a lady who loved life and enjoyed friends. We've all gone through sad and unhappy times in our life, and she was no different." Warwick claimed that she was not at all a sad or tragic character. Despite enduring all of her many tragedies, she did not give them the power to define her.
A difficult childhood, a feud with Prince Philip, divorce and the shame of national scandals. Sarah Ferguson may be a duchess, but she's faced a lot of tragedy throughout her royal life. Sarah Ferguson may have married into the royal family, but her life isn't exactly a Cinderella story. From the very beginning, she was part of Britain's upper class, as Ferguson's father was Major Ronald Ivor Ferguson, who managed the Prince of Wales's polo team, per biography. As a child, the future Duchess attended 2 elite private schools, Danes Hill School in Hampshire, followed by Hurst Lodge School. Growing up, she lived on a rural estate named Dummer Down Farm, which apparently sits in the middle of Jane Austen country and consists of a staggering 800 acres, per the Express. In other words, the Duchess, who is often referred to as Fergie, had a pretty luxurious upbringing, even if it wasn't exactly up to royal standards. Nevertheless, her father always tried to remind her of her privilege, as she recalled to the Financial Times. "I remember my father saying, 'Remember that the kitchen's more important than the dining room table.'" While her childhood certainly wasn't perfect, it was very comfortable. Despite her privileged upbringing, Sarah Ferguson's early life wasn't always easy. When she was 13, her parents separated, and her mother swiftly eloped with a polo player from Argentina, leaving Fergie behind in England. Suddenly, her family seemed to split apart, and she told the Financial Times, "I became head of the house at 13, with my sister going to live in Australia. Dad was morose and lived on the horse and the polo ground, so it was just me." In the 2011 documentary Finding Sarah, Fergie revealed that her mother was abusive, saying, "When she used to hit me because I didn't sit on my potty or wouldn't eat, a little vein would come up on the centre of my head near my red hair." According to Fergie, her mother thought it was a sign of the devil. Then, when her mother set off for a life in Argentina, she was left feeling pointless, unlovable, and worthless, and her strict father was no help. According to the Duchess of York, this childhood trauma led to a lifetime of self-doubt and low self-esteem.
But I was brought up always to shut up and be still and never say it.
After a difficult childhood, Sarah Ferguson began to forge her own path. She landed a job in publishing, and for a few years, she lived a pretty normal life. Then, she suddenly found herself thrust into the public eye at the age of 26, when the tabloids discovered she was Prince Andrew's latest girlfriend. Because of her looks and personality, Fergie was quickly branded as a wild party girl. As she told People, "When you have a sense of humour and you're a redhead, everyone takes you for a big hurricane, but sometimes you don't always want to be the storm." Life as a tabloid leading lady certainly wasn't easy. Over the years, she was ridiculed as the Duchess of Pork and was often made the villain of the royal family. As she explained to People, "I had major mental health problems because of the trauma." Sarah Ferguson officially joined the royal family in 1986 when she tied the knot with Prince Andrew. The wedding itself was a suitably extravagant affair. Held in Westminster Abbey, the royal wedding was televised to an estimated 500 million around the world. After the famous kiss on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, she and Andrew set off for a romantic honeymoon in the Azores Islands, per Town and Country. However, this idyllic happily ever after didn't last long. Soon after the ceremony, Fergie began to realise that the reality of being a princess in the royal family wasn't exactly a fairy tale. With the pressures of the vicious press on one side and the demanding family on the other, she allegedly felt quite suffocated and trapped.
Now, it's not a fairy tale, it's real life in there.
Plus, her marriage to Prince Andrew was short-lived, lasting only 6 years, and things became rocky early on. Shortly after their wedding, Andrew was sent away by the Navy, as Fergie told Harper's Bazaar. When Beatrice was born, Andrew got 10 days of shore leave, and when he left and I cried, they all said, "Grow up and get a grip." The pair drifted apart, and within a few years, rumours of extramarital affairs began to swirl around them. Things came to a head when Fergie was pictured on holiday with her financial advisor, John Bryan. In one particularly scandalous photo, Bryan could apparently be seen sucking on Fergie's toe, per the Washington Post. Rumours also spread that Fergie was having an affair with an American called Steve Wyatt in the early 90s, per the Mirror. As Fergie later told Rosie magazine, she was spiralling out of control at the time, saying, "I had out-of-control debts, an out-of-control lifestyle that I couldn't keep up anymore. I'd now ruined my marriage and I had a breakdown too." The Duke and Duchess of York split in 1992 and officially divorced in 1996. During her marriage to Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson became incredibly close to Princess Diana. Both were around the same age and had married into the royal family. In many ways, the pair were best friends, and Ferguson told Metro, "She and I were the only two who really understood what it was like back in the 80s. The pressure was ferocious, and yet together, the two of us were powerful. Not powerful in the sense of strength or importance, but in the love we had for each other and the way we helped each other cope. Nobody else is left who understands those days." However, the press often pitted the pair against each other, and rumours of a rivalry between them quickly spread. As Fergie told People, "Everybody wanted to see a feud because we were so strong together. People want to break something so strong." Eventually, it seems that the tabloid rumours drove a wedge between the friends, which resulted in some real conflict between the pair. In fact, when Diana died in 1997, they tragically weren't even on speaking terms.
I love Diana and I will always love her.
Even though the marriage between Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew failed, she and her ex-husband have always remained close. The pair worked together to co-parent their children, and Fergie told The Telegraph, "We are co-parents who support each other and believe that family is everything." In 2011, Fergie revealed to Good Morning America that they were actually still cohabiting despite being separated, saying, "We're a wonderful unit. We still live together."
We just have a very strong belief about compromise, communication and compassion.
In recent years, some royal experts have suggested that Fergie and Andrew might actually marry again. However, their unique setup seems to work just fine. As Fergie told The Telegraph in 2021, "All I can say is that we're happy with the way we are right now. We always say we are the most contented divorced couple in the world. We're divorced to each other, not from each other." Sarah Ferguson found herself embroiled in yet another scandal in 2010, when she was accused of asking a reporter for money in exchange for access to her ex-husband. As The Guardian reported, Fergie was caught on camera trying to bribe a reporter from News of the World, who was disguised as a businessman. She allegedly asked for £500,000 and could be heard saying, That opens up everything you would ever wish for. I can open any door you want, and I will for you. Look after me and he'll look after you. You'll get it back tenfold. After the tape was released, Fergie apologised and said in a statement, "I very deeply regret the situation and the embarrassment caused. It is true that my financial situation is under stress. However, that is no excuse for a serious lapse in judgment, and I am very sorry that this has happened."
Which is kind of brave to say, but it's true.
After Sarah Ferguson's bribery and toe-sucking scandals, she quickly fell out of favour with the royal family. Prince Philip reportedly found Ferguson's behaviour so distasteful, he actually refused to let her stay at Sandringham, even when she came to visit her family at Christmas. As one source told The Express, "She's not allowed to stay in the house. To be frank, the Duke of Edinburgh doesn't like her." The rift became more obvious in 2011, when Ferguson wasn't invited to her nephew Prince William's wedding to Kate Middleton. Since then, Fergie's relationship with the royal family seems to have improved, but that doesn't change the fact she was excluded for many years. Sarah Ferguson shocked many people when she decided to stand by her ex-husband Prince Andrew after he was accused of sexual assault. At the time, she told People, "Whatever challenges he has, I will stand firm to the co-parenters that we are together. I believe that he's a kind, good man, and he's been a fabulous father to the girls." It seems that Fergie's support of Andrew is unshakable, and she has repeatedly gone out of her way to speak up on his behalf. As royal commentator Penny Junor noted to The Guardian, she has not just stood silently by his side, she actually speaks out in favour of him. For many fans of the Duchess, it's been hard to see her stand beside a man who faces such accusations. One of the biggest tragedies of Sarah Ferguson's life was her constant battle with the judgmental and cruel British press. In fact, it wasn't until she was in her 60s that she finally came to terms with the trauma the tabloids had caused. As she explained to People, "It's taken a great deal of work to get over it, because I believed every word that the front pages told me. It was self-shame. I'm stratospherically sensitive." Finally, Fergie says she feels free, even though she'll never fully get over the damage to her self-esteem. As she explained to Town and Country, "She's still with me, that person who thinks she's fat, ugly and disgusting, and she still has to have her hair done to talk to you. But she's now not so vocal. The truth is, I'm 61 years old and I'm free of the self-sabotaging Sarah."
The beloved loss of a dog, the death of a close friend, and a life ridden with mockery from all sides. Kate Middleton's life hasn't been all roses and crowns. It's been tainted with tragedy. It's hard to believe that someone as beloved as Catherine, Princess of Wales, would have been bullied as a kid. Seeing how poised and confident she is as an adult, it's easy to imagine that she was popular from her early years. But she had quite a difficult adolescence. As one friend, Jessica Hay, told Celeb Now, Catherine was treated badly at Down House, a school she attended for 2 years beginning at age 13, adding, "It didn't help that she was so tall and self-conscious about her eczema." Royal biographer Katie Nicholl revealed in Kate, the Future Queen, that Catherine, quote, "stood out for the wrong reasons and was often teased for being slender, lanky, and a head taller than her peers." The situation was so bad that Catherine ended up transferring to Marlborough College, where the evidence of the bullying was evident to her peers. As Catherine's friend Gemma Williamson described it, Catherine arrived suddenly during the middle of the year. Apparently, she had been bullied very badly at her previous school, and she certainly looked very thin and pale. She had very little confidence. Another classmate told the outlet that while Catherine would eventually gain popularity, when she first arrived, it wasn't easy. Boys at her new school publicly rated her appearance by holding up scores out of 10, with all of them rating her as a 1 or 2. In an ideal world, people would be able to fall in love and make the decision to get married without unsolicited commentary. Privacy is a rare thing for royals, though, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, was harshly thrust into the spotlight when she began dating Prince William.
I think you can get quite consumed by a relationship when you're younger.
The two started off as friends, even sharing a house with other schoolmates while at university. They started dating in 2003, although the romance wasn't public until the following year. A few years of dating before marriage is not out of the ordinary, especially when the couple in question met in their teens. Nevertheless, many seemed impatient for the couple to tie the knot. Catherine and William weren't in a rush to get married, though, even breaking up in 2007. Unfortunately for the young woman, the ups and downs of their relationship were widely covered by the press. Catherine was cruelly dubbed Weighty Katie by the press as their courtship continued. The jeering nickname stuck with her until William proposed in 2010. In yet another horrible intrusion into Princess Catherine's privacy, photos of her were taken and published without her consent in 2012. While she was no doubt used to being trailed by the paparazzi by this point, these photos took things even further. They were taken while she was sunbathing topless while on vacation with Prince William. The two were visiting a private home when the pictures were taken and subsequently published in a French tabloid. The pair issued a statement following the publication of the photos, saying, "Their Royal Highnesses have been hugely saddened to learn that a French publication and a photographer have invaded their privacy in such a grotesque and totally unjustifiable manner." The statement went on to mention the prince's late mother, who tragically died as the result of a car crash while fleeing the paparazzi, adding, "The incident is reminiscent of the worst excesses of the press and paparazzi during the life of Diana, Princess of Wales, and all the more upsetting to the Duke and Duchess for being so." The couple sued the magazine, which was ordered to pay 100,000 euros to the couple, plus another 90,000 each from two staffers involved in the incident, per Vogue. While Catherine, Princess of Wales, is a memorable royal in her own right, she has drawn many comparisons to the former Princess of Wales, Diana. Perhaps it was inevitable that Prince William's wife would have to live up to his late mother's legacy. She was the people's princess after all, and it was assumed she would one day be queen. It's no wonder then that so many eyes landed on Catherine when she became involved with the heir to the throne. It's a difficult legacy to live up to. While Catherine hasn't complained, the public has scrutinized the connection. The Daily Mail asked back in 2006, "Kate Middleton, trapped in Diana's shadow?" In 2011, ahead of her wedding to Prince William, ABC posed the question, "Can Kate ever emerge from Diana's shadow?" While the comparisons will likely continue for the rest of Catherine's life, particularly since she became the Princess of Wales following her father-in-law's ascension to the throne, Catherine has held up admirably under the pressure. As Katie Nicholl told 9 Honey, "I don't think she seeks to emulate Diana. I think she was so aware of the comparison right from the outset, but despite the wait, she is actually a very different woman. Her success has been in carving her own identity in the royal family as the Duchess of Cambridge and making that role herself."
8 minutes they were on their feet, cheering you. Tomorrow, the newspapers will be about nothing other than you.
The fairy tale romance of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, has captivated people across the globe. But it has also opened up a sometimes unhealthy fascination with their personal lives. Speculation about the state of their relationship has followed them since they were dating. But it became especially meddlesome when claims surfaced that William was cheating on Catherine with Rose Hanbury, the Marchioness of Cholmondeley. The allegations would have been troubling enough, but adding insult to injury was the fact that Hanbury is a friend of Catherine's. In 2019, an anonymous source told In Touch that Catherine confronted William about the rumors. He reportedly denied them, but Catherine allegedly told him to stay away from the Cholmondeleys. According to the source, Kate sees their friendship in an entirely different light now. They come across as a perfect couple who can do no wrong. But the reality is, most couples have their issues, and William and Kate are no different. The couple didn't publicly comment on the rumors, but they were reportedly a source of stress for Catherine. According to a family friend who told Us Weekly, Kate hates the thought that one day her children will be able to read about the rumors online. Still, there was a silver lining. According to the source, the entire situation helped the couple to recognize where their relationship needed more attention. Ultimately, it allowed her and William to reevaluate and examine their relationship. While the loss of a pet may not seem like much of a tragedy to some, those who have deep bonds with their pets know just how heartbreaking it can be. According to Scientific American, the pain of pet loss is often misunderstood, but the grief is very real and very painful. In 2020, Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William lost their dog Lupo. They opened up about their Cocker Spaniel's death in an Instagram post, writing, "He has been at the heart of our family for the past 9 years, and we will miss him so much." Vanity Fair noted that Catherine's parents gave the Cocker Spaniel to the couple on their first Christmas as husband and wife. The loss of such an important member of the family left a void that was difficult to fill. Fortunately, Catherine was not left without a canine companion. She introduced another Cocker Spaniel puppy shortly before Lupo's death. According to a source telling the Daily Mail, it was hoped that a younger dog would give Lupo some company and give him a little more life and energy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, suffered a personal loss in July 2022 when her friend Christine Hill died. Hill, an antenatal expert, had been a great help to Catherine while she was pregnant with Prince George. As a spokesperson for Hill's family told the Daily Mail, she will be achingly missed. Her feisty, amusing, straightforward demeanor won her many friends. Hill played a pivotal role in Catherine and William's life, helping them prepare for parenthood. Catherine reportedly attended lessons conducted by Hill, who coached her on all things motherhood. Hill had nothing but kind things to say about the couple ahead of George's birth. Speaking to The Telegraph, Hill said of Catherine, "She is a delightful girl. What you see is what you get." She also expressed her confidence in William's ability to help Catherine navigate childbirth, calling the couple a, quote, "very strong team."
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
The death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 devastated royal watchers everywhere, but the loss was felt most keenly by members of the royal family. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had grown quite close with her grandmother-in-law over the years. As a source told Us Weekly in 2019, Kate and the Queen have always had a special bond, but they developed a deeper friendship after she and Prince William moved from Anmer Hall, Norfolk, to Kensington Palace, which is within walking distance of Buckingham Palace. Appearing in public after the Queen's death, Catherine's emotions over the loss of the Queen were evident. But according to the Sunday Times, her son Prince Louis offered some adorable words of advice to console his mother, saying, "At least Granny is with great-grandpa, Prince Philip, now."
While Prince Harry has always lived in the lap of luxury, he's actually experienced his fair share of darkness as well. If you're curious to learn some heartbreaking details about Prince Harry, here are some of this royal's most tragic experiences. While life as a royal comes with unthinkable wealth and privilege, it also requires dealing with the almost daily barrage of the press. Ever since Prince Harry was a child, he's had to put up with overly inquisitive reporters and undeniably intrusive photographers. In fact, the paparazzi have been a thorn in the side of the royal family for decades. As Town & Country reported in 2020, a television programme entitled Lucy Worsley's Royal Photo Album delved into the troublesome nature of the British press for the royal family. Spoiler, it's a lot. When it comes to Harry, members of the press have been known to use drones and helicopters to intrude upon his and his family's life. This was especially the case when Harry and Meghan Markle started dating, though he reportedly did everything in his power to hide from their intrusive lenses, according to Vanity Fair. Things got so bad that Harry eventually filed several lawsuits against the hounding press. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was practically impossible to avoid hearing about the devastating passing of Princess Diana. The young princess lost her life in a car accident in 1997 when Harry was just 12 years old. For Diana's two sons, William and Harry, her passing was a traumatic, life-changing event that would take years for them to process. In a documentary called Our Mother Diana, Her Life and Legacy, Prince Harry opened up about the loss of his mother, saying, "There's not a day that William and I don't wish that she was still around. We wonder what kind of mother she would be now and what a difference she would be making." Harry also confessed that he still thinks about his last phone call with his mother and wishes he could have expressed more in that last talk. In 2017, Harry opened up about his personal struggles with mental health. As he told The Telegraph, it wasn't until he was in his late 20s that he accepted that he needed help dealing with his grief. The royal recalled how he often felt a fight-or-flight sensation while at public engagements. He even described experiencing irrational angry episodes that he couldn't explain. He revealed, "I just didn't know what was wrong with me." As it turns out, Harry's bottled-up grief about the loss of his mother had led to what could almost be described as a mental breakdown, which is why the royal decided to get the help he'd needed for so long.
Everyone needs a hug every now and then.
In 2020, Harry went into more detail about his mental health journey. According to Page 6, he explained at an event that he'd been in therapy for 3 years to process his trauma. It's undeniably sad that Harry felt that he couldn't get professional counselling until more than 20 years after his mother's passing. Most people would agree that the teenage years are pretty important for a person's development, but for Prince Harry, having a normal school life was impossible. The royal went to boarding school starting at age 13, and on his very first day, he was followed around by the press as he met his teachers and toured the school, according to the BBC. Additionally, while Harry had his own room, unlike the other students, he also had a full-time bodyguard who slept in the room next door. In 2018, The Cut spoke to some of Harry's fellow boarding school students. One recalled that while William was integrated with the other students, Harry, quote, had it harder finding his way. Another student explained that while everyone tried to make life as normal as possible for the young prince, it was often impossible, thanks to his bodyguards and the occasional visits from the Queen. After leaving school, Harry entered the army, like many of his royal predecessors. According to the royal family's website, he was a member of the army until 2015, but he maintained many of his titles afterward. As ITV reported, those titles were Captain General of the Royal Marines, Honorary Air Force Commandant of the Royal Air Force Base Huntington, and Honorary Commodore-in-Chief of the Royal Naval Command's Small Ships and Diving. However, when Harry and Meghan stepped back from the royal family, he had to give up these titles, even though he had originally planned to maintain them for life. As he said in 2015, "I will continue to wear the uniform and mix with fellow servicemen and women for the rest of my life." After losing the titles he'd worked so hard for, Prince Harry was reportedly devastated, as an insider told The Sun. For Harry, growing up as a direct descendant of the Queen of England meant he had to obey a series of strict rules. And while most of us know that Harry became known as somewhat of a bad boy in his early adulthood, it turns out he was actually showing signs of rebellion as early as 8 years old. According to a series of letters written by Princess Diana, young Harry always had trouble abiding by the royal rules. The notes, published in The Telegraph, explained that Harry was constantly in trouble at boarding school.
One of her mottos to me was, you can be as naughty as you want, just don't get caught.
While it's unclear exactly what mischief Harry was getting up to at that time, it's clear that he didn't care much for the royal code. Eventually, Harry was labelled a rebel thanks to his penchant for partying, and his 2019 decision to step back from the royal family was arguably the ultimate rebel move. According to People magazine, being a younger sibling as a royal sadly makes you the so-called spare, which means Prince Harry is exactly that to his older brother Prince William. Queen Elizabeth's sister, Princess Margaret, also struggled to find her place in the family. As Robert Lacey, who wrote the books Majesty and Monarch, said, "The system has not found a way of giving them the recognition that they need. The problem comes down to the fact that the younger sibling of a royal heir is another potential heir. That is, until the older sibling has children. This puts the spare in a pretty confusing position. While they aren't as important as their older sibling, they are kept in reserve as another alternate heir. This odd mixture of pressure and uselessness would surely make it hard for Harry to feel normal." Finding real romance as a prince couldn't have been easy for Harry. Fortunately, he finally fell in love with a woman willing to make the necessary sacrifices that come with marrying into the royal family, Meghan Markle. But things were far from easy for the royal couple. One major reason? The British press hounded Harry and his wife relentlessly, often publishing some problematic stories, and some of the press coverage of the royal couple was downright racist.
My British friend said to me, "I'm sure he's great, but you shouldn't do it because the British tabloids will destroy your life."
Eventually, the tabloids acknowledged their problematic coverage of the couple. However, for Harry and Meghan, the damage had been done. According to ABC News, the couple released a public statement to leaders of the major British tabloids, saying that they wouldn't cooperate with them after how they were treated. It's pretty tragic that Harry had to watch his wife being treated so poorly by his own country's press. It's no secret that the modern world can be a stressful place to live for a variety of reasons, with one of the most unsettling among them being the ongoing climate crisis. Even Prince Harry has sleepless nights worrying about the potentially tragic future of our planet. As Harry reportedly told a student he met while traveling through Africa, he sometimes feels overwhelmed by the threat posed by climate change, according to The Telegraph. But rather than do nothing, the student added, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle want to use their platform to enable grassroots change and to try and create a better society.
No one can deny science, otherwise we live in a very, very troubling world.
Harry has also spoken out about the need to acknowledge that the coronavirus outbreak may also be linked to, in his words, our exploitation of nature. There's no doubt that someone in Harry's position is highly informed about the world's biggest issues, so it's no wonder he gets depressed, but at least he's determined to make a positive impact. One of the most shocking moments in the history of the royal family, Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back from their royal roles in 2019. In the announcement, Harry expressed, quote, great sadness at the decision. And let's face it, the couple's departure from royal life was sad for everyone involved, including fans of the royal family. According to an episode of the Royally Obsessed podcast, the couple's last royal engagement was incredibly difficult for Harry. The hosts explained, he looked very emotional at the Mountbatten Festival of Music. When they received a standing ovation, people thought Harry looked a little teary-eyed. While Harry was clearly upset to leave the royal family, he also felt that he had no choice, as People magazine noted. Almost everyone has been affected by the coronavirus pandemic that began in 2019 in some way. And like many others, Prince Harry was personally impacted by a tragic loss caused by COVID-19. According to Metro, Harry and his brother William served with a fellow soldier named Ryan Cartwright, who caught the virus and passed away. Cartwright was just 36 years old when he tragically succumbed to the illness. In addition to taking the life of a fellow soldier, COVID-19 also forced Harry to miss out on a trip to the UK to visit family, according to The Mirror. And if that wasn't enough, his own father, Prince Charles, contracted the virus in March of 2020. It's no secret that Harry and Meghan have had their issues with negative press, thanks to overly inquisitive public attention. In fact, the couple's surprising departure from royal life shows their unwillingness to live under the scrutiny of the tabloids. And while Harry and Meghan's move to America initially seemed to offer a much-needed break from the public's prying eyes, some experts believe that the couple will never be able to lead a normal life. On the Us Weekly podcast, Royally Us, royal expert Simon Morgan said that the couple will most likely never get the privacy they seek. He explained, once you withdraw from something, people naturally want to know what you're doing. He added that moving to the United States could potentially compromise their privacy more due to the attitudes people have on this side of the pond. Sadly, it's all too probable that Harry and his wife will always be plagued by the paparazzi, even though they moved to another country and their security team can only do so much. For most of their lives, Harry and William were incredibly close. After all, they've been through a lot together. However, as The Sun reported, the two brothers had a pretty serious feud that lasted for 2 years, beginning in 2018. Apparently, it all began when William tried to interfere with Harry's relationship with Meghan. One reporter shared, I was told by a number of sources that Prince Harry went ballistic. Then, in October of 2019, Harry confessed that his relationship with William had indeed changed. In the documentary Harry and Meghan, An African Journey, Harry spoke candidly about the ups and downs of his relationship with William, saying, stuff happens, but look, we're brothers. We'll always be brothers.
As brothers, you have good days, you have bad days.
The royal then added that the press had exaggerated the rift, which probably shouldn't be too surprising at this point. Fortunately, Harry and William's relationship has reportedly turned a corner.
Death, drama, and a romantic snub fit for a king. Royal life ain't all palaces and parties, and nobody knows this better than Princess Beatrice. As a child, Princess Beatrice struggled to keep up in school. On an episode of the Lessons in Dyslexic Thinking podcast, she reflected on one particular moment where things just weren't clicking. Speaking about one of her teachers, Beatrice recalled,
and she was like, why are you looking at me? The words are not on my face. I said, well, they're not on the page either.
At 7 years old, the young royal was diagnosed with dyslexia, and it seems that her diagnosis changed her school experience for the better. In an interview with Hello magazine, she said, I think it was quite an empowering thing actually. Between the age of 7 and 11, really figuring out what you could and couldn't do. She also noted that her teachers were supportive and made helpful accommodations, adding, I'm very lucky that I had some fantastic teachers. As an adult, Beatrice continues to use her platform to spread awareness about dyslexia and talk about common misconceptions about the condition. During a speech for the Helen Arkell Dyslexia Charity, she once said, dyslexia is not a pigeonhole to say you can't do anything. It is an opportunity and a possibility to learn differently. Dyslexics have magical brains, they just process differently. Princess Beatrice was only 8 years old when her parents divorced in 1996. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, first went their separate ways in 1992. In an interview with Harper's Bazaar, Sarah suggested that their marital troubles began when Beatrice was born, and Andrew was away on military duty. She recalled, I spent my entire first pregnancy alone. When Beatrice was born, Andrew got 10 days of shore leave. In the wake of the divorce, Beatrice found herself towing the line between being a regular person and a member of the royal family. When she was with her mother, Beatrice could let her inner wild child run free. But once she was back at the palace, she had to remember to behave like a princess. Royal author Tom Quinn once told The Express that Beatrice and her sister had to navigate a split world. The press attention Beatrice's parents faced didn't make things any easier. When photos of American financier John Bryan kissing a topless Fergie's feet surfaced, the drama reached a fever pitch. The pictures sparked a media circus, and there were rumors about the palace supposedly trying to get full custody of Beatrice and her sister. Andrew and Sarah eventually agreed to co-parent. Princess Beatrice knows full well the pain of unrequited love, and it all comes down to a man called Dave Clark. Beatrice and Clark dated for 10 years, and Beatrice eventually moved to New York City to be with him after he landed a job there, but it all turned out to be for nothing. In 2016, the couple found themselves in a bit of a predicament. They'd been dating for a decade and yet hadn't made any plans to get married. Beatrice was reportedly eager for Clark to propose, so she gave him an ultimatum. Either he got down on one knee, or the relationship was over.
It takes no time to bend the knee. Pledge your soul to her cause.
In a shocking turn of events, Clark said no. Sources told the Daily Beast that some members of the royal family didn't get on with Clark, and that this might have been a contributing factor in the breakup. Things only got worse for Beatrice when the news broke that her former boyfriend had proposed to someone else, barely a year after they'd called it quits. Clark got married in 2018, and Beatrice was notably absent from the wedding, despite initially saying that she was happy for the couple. When you're living your life in the public eye, it's inevitable that someone will say something nasty about your looks, and Princess Beatrice is no exception. It might be safe to say that Beatrice has been self-conscious about her looks from a young age. According to some reports, her mother put Beatrice on a diet when she was only 8 years old. During this time, Sarah told journalists that runs in the family. Sarah, whom the press at one time dubbed the Duchess of Pork, famously partnered with Weight Watchers after her divorce from Prince Andrew. Princess Beatrice is no stranger to having her looks and fashion choices critiqued either, and she was really put through the ringer after Prince William's wedding. The elaborate fascinator Beatrice wore to the event was quickly torn apart by the press and pundits alike. The headpiece, which was dubbed the pretzel hat by the media, generated plenty of cruel headlines and criticism. Understandably, this affected Beatrice. In a 2018 interview with Vogue UK, Princess Eugenie shared that her sister has been through a tough time with the negative attention she received over the years. Remembering one particularly bad occasion, Eugenie said, "There was a horrible article that had been written about Beatrice, and she got really upset. We were just about to step out, and she had a bit of a wobble and cried." Princess Beatrice and Prince Philip were understandably quite close. And so, when the Duke of Edinburgh died in 2021, Beatrice was heartbroken. During Philip's service of Thanksgiving, Beatrice was left in tears when her father, Prince Andrew, walked Queen Elizabeth II to her seat. Beatrice was seen trying to hide her face from cameras with her order of service sheet as she rummaged for a tissue in her bag. In the 2016 ITV documentary Our Queen at 90, Beatrice spoke fondly of Philip. She said,
"I'm very lucky that there are lots of moments where I've been able to share some quite magical times with my grandfather."
Beatrice's love for Philip was evident when she married Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi in a secret ceremony right in the middle of lockdown. Philip was one of the few people who made the small guest list. The event took place a mere 9 months before his death. Prince Harry's royal rift has had quite the impact on Princess Beatrice. Beatrice and her sister, Princess Eugenie, have remained close with the estranged prince, and apparently the rest of the royal family isn't too pleased with the cousins' dynamic. Royal experts have questioned whether Beatrice can be trusted not to spill royal secrets to Harry, who in turn might put it in his next book or Netflix docuseries. Royal expert Angela Levin tells GB News, "Beatrice is very stable, but I think they wonder what they will pass on to Harry. They don't want to give them information to potentially pass on." There have been reports that Prince William is keeping his distance from Beatrice and Eugenie because he doesn't know whether he can trust them when it comes to Harry. In an interview with The Mirror, royal expert Tom Quinn said, "For William, it's a question of loyalty. As Beatrice and Eugenie have got closer to Harry, William has decided to keep them very much at arm's length. Beatrice and Eugenie are moving across to what one Kensington Palace official described as the dark side." According to insiders, the scandal surrounding Prince Andrew's sexual assault allegations and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein put Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie through a special kind of hell. Evidently, the sisters were shocked and angry over the allegations. More than anything, though, they were apparently unhappy with how the media circus affected their dad's reputation, and as a result, their own. One source told Us Weekly, Eugenie and Beatrice are really upset. They believe their dad made a huge mistake in judgment ever being associated with Jeffrey Epstein.
My judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable.
Despite being upset with their father for his poor choice in friends, the source claimed that Beatrice and Eugenie have still made an effort to support Andrew. They also reportedly recognize that the allegations against their father will have a lasting impact on both his reputation and the monarchy as a whole. It's worth noting, of course, that neither Beatrice nor Eugenie have spoken publicly about the scandal or their father's alleged victims, and it's unlikely that they ever will. In 2023, Princess Beatrice's mother, Sarah Ferguson, revealed that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. By the time she announced her diagnosis, she had already undergone surgery and was receiving further treatment. This was no doubt a trying time for Sarah, as well as her loved ones. In the end, though, she made a full recovery. Barely a year later, however, Sarah learned she had skin cancer. In January 2024, she shared that she'd been diagnosed with malignant melanoma. Beatrice and her sister, Princess Eugenie, did everything they could to support their mother amid her new diagnosis. A source told People magazine, "They've been terrific." In a subsequent interview with This Morning, Beatrice said that her mother was doing very well and that she was by then cancer-free.
She's been through so much, but I think really now she's sort of coming into her own.
Princess Beatrice had a very close relationship with her paternal grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. Considering this, it was all the more heartbreaking to see the princess bid her grandmother goodbye at the funeral in 2022. Time and time again, the princess has made it known that she and the queen were thick as thieves. Beatrice even had one of the queen's gowns adjusted so she could wear it as her wedding dress. She once told Hello magazine, "I have two role models, my mother and my grandmother. I find my grandmother inspiring every day because her overwhelming sense of duty is linked with an overwhelming curiosity." As the general public mourned the death of the Queen in September 2022, Beatrice mourned the loss of a beloved family member. She was even spotted crying as she left the funeral proceedings with her mother and her husband. Amid King Charles III's cancer health crisis, reports were swirling that Princess Beatrice was eager to take on some royal duties to lighten the load. However, according to insiders, hell would freeze over before that becomes a reality. Being a part-time working royal is simply not an option for someone like Beatrice. A precedent Queen Elizabeth II set when she refused to allow Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to divide their time between the monarchy and their personal endeavors. Since Beatrice has never been a working royal and instead built her own career, she doesn't meet the criteria to become a working member of the royal family, despite the institution being severely short-handed. This rejection has been quite painful, according to a friend of Beatrice's who spoke to the Daily Beast. They said, "It seems mean that the girls aren't being used at all when they have made it clear they want to be of service. They are very upset to have been ignored by the king as they feel they have a lot to offer, but ultimately not surprised." Like many other members of the royal family, Princess Beatrice is a patron of various charity organizations. One of these organizations was Grace's Place, which provided free care to terminally sick children. Beatrice helped raise funds for the organization and had the honor of opening its new building. During her speech on the day, she said, "It is an incredible honor to be here today to see this dream become a reality. With all of your support, I know this place can really be the pinnacle of childcare. It's a huge honor to be here today." The center provided care 3 days a week and every other Saturday. Unfortunately, despite all the funds that were raised and Beatrice's contribution, the hospice began to find it difficult to make ends meet. In 2019, the organization announced its closure in a statement posted on X, formerly Twitter. It explained that it had needed £1.2 million annually and simply couldn't find that amount of money. During its short time in operation, Grace's Place helped over 50 children in West Yorkshire, and media outlets speculated that Beatrice was likely heartbroken that the center could no longer afford to provide that care.
While the Duchess of Sussex may seem to have it all, She hasn't been spared from tragedy in life. From a rough childhood to the glaring scrutiny of the aggressive British tabloids, here is the tragic truth of Meghan Markle. One thing that Meghan Markle has been open about is her race. She's biracial, as her mother is black and her father is white. Sadly, Meghan and her family dealt with microaggressions just for being a mixed-race family, starting when she was a newborn. In an essay for Elle, Meghan wrote, "And there was my mom, caramel in complexion with her light-skinned baby in tow, being asked where my mother was since they assumed she was the nanny." Later in life, when Meghan was home from college on a break, someone referred to her mother using a racial slur in a parking lot encounter. Those were neither the first nor last incidents of racism that Meghan has dealt with, as even more was lobbed at the actress as an adult. Growing up, Meghan had to navigate her biracial identity in a society that didn't accommodate her. As early as 7th grade, Meghan found herself having to choose between black or white boxes on a census, which confused her, so she left the box blank. She explained in the essay, "I left my identity blank, a question mark, an absolute incomplete, much like how I felt." Similar challenges came in high school, when once again Meghan said she didn't know where she belonged. She detailed the experience on the TIG, writing, "My high school had cliques, the black girls and white girls, the Filipino and Latina girls. Being biracial, I felt somewhere in between." On December 23, 1979, Meghan Markle's parents, Doria Ragland and Thomas Markle, tied the knot at a temple in Los Angeles, according to India Today. Less than 2 years later, Meghan was born on August 4, 1981. But it wasn't long after that joyous day that Meghan's parents separated. According to Good Housekeeping, they called it quits when Meghan was 6 years old, when Meghan went to live with her mother. Fortunately, Meghan was able to spend quality time with both of her parents. While she didn't live full-time with her father, she got to spend time with him on set. He was a director of both lighting and photography on the raunchy sitcom Married with Children. In a chat about it with Esquire, Meghan recalled the experience, saying, "Every day after school for 10 years, I was on the set of Married with Children," which is a really funny and perverse place for a little girl in a Catholic school uniform to grow up. After graduating from high school and college, Meghan Markle moved to Hollywood to try and make it as an actress. However, Meghan still carried her insecurities with her, which led her to be quite rough on herself for a long time. In a post on The Tig, she confessed, "My 20s were brutal, a constant battle with myself, judging my weight, my style, my desire to be as cool, as hip, as smart, as whatever as everyone else." Meghan also found that she was labeled, quote, ethnically ambiguous, meaning she could audition for roles originally intended for Latinas and black women, among others. In an essay for Elle, she wrote, "Sadly, it didn't matter. I wasn't black enough for the black roles, and I wasn't white enough for the white ones, leaving me somewhere in the middle as the ethnic chameleon who couldn't book a job." Fortunately, at some point, Meghan had a revelation about her own unique beauty. While at an audition, a casting director advised her to, quote, "know that you're enough," saying, "less makeup, more Meghan." As fans of the royal family know, Prince Harry wasn't Meghan's first husband. That would be Trevor Engelson, who Meghan married on September 10, 2011 in Jamaica, according to Us Weekly. Engelson is a film producer who founded the production company Underground Films, and he is known for his work on the series Snowfall, according to Life and Style. Unfortunately, though the pair loved each other, the two couldn't make it work. Engelson was back in Los Angeles, and Meghan was living in Toronto where Suits filmed, and the two struggled with the distance. A source told Woman's Day, Meghan landed her role in Suits just a few months before they married, and despite being together for 6 years before getting hitched, things started to fall apart not long after the wedding. The main thing that Meghan is known for outside of her royal connection is her work on the USA legal dramedy Suits. As she tells it, she absolutely loved being a part of the show, which was nuanced and sensitive in its approach to casting. In her Elle essay, Meghan explained, "It's the Goldilocks of my acting career, where finally I was just right." Meghan starred on Suits from 2011 through 2018. Sadly, Meghan had to leave Suits when she married Prince Harry, as senior members of the royal family aren't supposed to have commercial jobs outside of their palace commitments, according to Vogue. Now that Meghan and Harry have stepped back from the royal family and are living stateside in California, Meghan could go back to acting if she wanted, but given how busy they've been with other projects, it remains to be seen if she will. The British tabloid press is so notorious an institution that Meghan's friends tried to warn her about how awful they can be. In the documentary Meghan and Harry: An African Journey, Meghan recalled, "When I first met my now husband, my friends were really happy because I was so happy. But my British friend said to me, 'I'm sure he's great, but you shouldn't do it because the British tabloids will destroy your life.'"
I didn't get it. So it's been complicated.
The British press descended on Meghan like vultures pretty much from day one. According to the Oprah magazine, Meghan was subjected to brutal and racist attacks from tabloids, who often characterized her as a terrible person. Yikes! No wonder her friends tried to protect her. Meghan has two half-siblings. One of them is Thomas Markle Jr., from whom Meghan is estranged, and it's not hard to understand why. On April 26, 2018, Thomas reportedly handwrote a letter to Prince Harry, which contained some pretty dire warnings about his half-sister. In the letter, which was obtained by In Touch, Thomas wrote, "As more time passes to your royal wedding, it became very clear that this is the biggest mistake in royal wedding history. Meghan Markle is obviously not the right woman for you." Thomas then reportedly called her a, quote, "jaded, shallow, conceited woman that will make a joke of you and the royal family heritage." Wow. It didn't stop there either. Thomas went on to call Meghan a, quote, "below-sea average Hollywood actress who is aging," and he accused her of financially ruining their father, Thomas Markle Sr. Meghan has unfortunately had to put up with everything that her half-sister Samantha Markle has done to harm her. Namely, Samantha wrote and published a supposedly tell-all book about Meghan entitled The Diary of Princess Pushy's Sister. Meghan opened up about her relationship with her sister to Oprah Winfrey and weighed in on whether or not she felt betrayed. She told Oprah, "When you talk about betrayal, betrayal comes from someone that you have a relationship with." She also noted that it would be, quote, "very hard to tell all when you don't know me." She went on saying, "I don't feel comfortable talking about people that I really don't know. I mean, the last time I saw her must have been at least 18, 19 years ago, and before that, 10 years before that." The Markle family drama didn't stop with Meghan's half-siblings, as she and her father, Thomas Markle Sr., have a bit of a strained relationship. The reason? Not surprising to anyone, it has to do with the tabloid press. Meghan explained to Oprah that the press made it their mission to find out everything about her after she and Prince Harry started dating, and that included locating her parents. Indeed, they did exactly that and took it a step further when they found her father, she told Oprah. And from that point, the tabloids, they moved into the apartment next door and across from him, descended on the small town, which is giving him gifts. The whole thing just brings us to where we are today. While Thomas did break down and talk to the press, according to TMZ, he reportedly lied to Meghan about doing so. In January of 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan shocked the world when they announced their intentions to essentially abdicate, announcing in a statement that they were stepping back from the royal family and working to become financially independent. The statement read in part, "We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent while continuing to fully support Her Majesty the Queen." Harry and Meghan also explained their plan to split their time between North America and Europe, writing, "This geographic balance will enable us to raise our son with an appreciation for the royal tradition into which he was born, while also providing our family with the space to focus on the next chapter, including the launch of our new charitable entity." Meghan and Harry eventually settled into their new home in Santa Barbara, and while it proved to be the right move for them and their children, it's still sad that royal life wasn't working for the couple. Another revelation that we learned from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's 2021 tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey had to do with baby Archie. Unlike his first cousins, Meghan and Harry's son isn't called Prince Archie. He's called Master Archie, as the palace never gave him a royal title. And while the press made it look like that was Meghan and Harry's choice at the time, according to Insider, Meghan said it wasn't. But wait, there's more, and it just gets worse. Meghan told Oprah, "All around the same time, we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title."
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
One of the biggest bombshells that dropped in Prince Harry and Meghan's March 2021 interview with Oprah was that Meghan struggled with her mental health while at the palace. She told Oprah, "Look, I was really ashamed to say it at the time and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry especially, because I know how much loss he's suffered, but I knew that if I didn't say it, then I would do it."
I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
To make matters worse, when Meghan tried to get help for herself, her requests fell on deaf ears. She told Oprah, "I said that I've never felt this way before, and I need to go somewhere."
And I was told that I couldn't, that it wouldn't be good for the institution.
In November of 2020, Meghan did something incredibly brave. She opened up about having a miscarriage months earlier in July. As she tells it, she went to pick up baby Archie from his crib when she felt pain in her abdomen. In an essay for the New York Times, she wrote, "I dropped to the floor with him in my arms, humming a lullaby to keep us both calm. The cheerful tune, a stark contrast to my sense that something was not right. I knew as I clutched my firstborn child that I was losing my second." Naturally, Meghan and Prince Harry immediately sought medical help. She continued, "Hours later, I lay in a hospital bed, holding my husband's hand. I felt the clamminess of his palm and kissed his knuckles, wet from both our tears. I tried to imagine how we'd heal." Meghan said that by sharing her story with the world, she hoped to reduce the stigma and shame that often come with having a miscarriage, writing, "In being invited to share our pain, together we take the first steps toward healing."
Princess Diana is remembered fondly as a gem of Great Britain's royal family, but her life in the nation's spotlight was anything but a fairy tale. Before she was a princess, Diana Spencer was already a lady. She inherited a title within the British nobility at birth, making her, on paper, a perfect match for a prince. Think rolling hills, beautiful gardens, and polo matches. But Diana's childhood was not all what you'd think it would have been.
My parents, they never said they loved me.
So you never knew that, eh?
No. There was always the kiss there, there was no hugs or anything like that.
Princess Diana had a tragically lonely childhood. Despite the large countryside estate she lived in, the titles she had, and the money that her family possessed, things were not easy. Diana's mother left her and her siblings for another man when Diana was only 6. Tragically, Diana thought that her mother was simply on vacation, and her brother Charles Spencer recalled that Diana used to sit on the doorstep of the house, waiting for her mother to return.
My father told me about 5 years ago, he said you sat on the doorstep, you didn't eat, you didn't sleep, you just sat there, you just never spoke.
Due in part to the Cracking Family Foundation, the Earl of Spencer, Diana's father, reportedly entered a dark phase of depression and left all the raising of his children to a variety of nannies. Diana herself recalled that her childhood was very unhappy and that she considered her 20 stuffed animals as her family. Imagine marrying someone you've only ever met a dozen times. The thought's enough to make us shudder, but that was the reality for Diana Spencer. Princess Diana and Prince Charles met just 12 times before they got married. So how did that happen? Well, Diana and Charles met when they were 16 and 29 respectively, as Charles was close to Diana's older sister at the time. By the time it'd been decided that Diana was to be a romantic interest of the prince's, she was caught up in the whirlwind, but her married life with Charles would be anything but happy. Tragically, much of her struggles in the marriage would play out in the public eye.
My husband and I had to keep everything together because we didn't want to disappoint the public. And yet, obviously, there was a lot of anxiety going on within our four walls.
The British tabloids are infamous for their intrusive tactics, and when Diana Spencer emerged, they were obsessed with her. Diana was just 19 when she and Prince Charles became an item. She was living in London at the time, working as a part-time teacher, and the press went absolutely crazy. In a 1995 interview with the BBC, Diana recalled how she initially took the press attention as being a result of her husband's good reputation and status. She said, "It took a long time to understand why people were so interested in me, but I assumed it was because my husband had done a lot of wonderful work leading up to our marriage and our relationship." As she later discovered, the press's relationship with the couple was much more parasitic than benign.
But then during the years, you see yourself as a good product that sits on a shelf and sells well. And people make a lot of money out of you.
The press attention was not something that Diana was prepared for, and although she learned how to maneuver the tabloids, it was never a relationship that she desired.
As far as I was concerned, I was a fat, chubby 20-year-old, 21-year-old, and I couldn't understand the level of interest.
Even if you're not a fan of the royal family, you know that there are protocols they have to follow. There's a lot to learn, and Diana Spencer was left to figure it out on her own. Diana recalled in an interview with the BBC that she was pretty much abandoned by the royal family and had to learn the ropes without guidance.
It was isolating, but it was also a situation where you couldn't indulge in feeling sorry for yourself. You had to either sink or swim.
When asked if there was a time in her life as a royal that forced her to learn on the go, Diana said that her royal tour of Australia and New Zealand changed just about everything. By the end of that trip, she said she was, quote, a different person.
I realised the sense of duty, the level of intensity of interest, and the demanding role I now found myself in.
Needless to say, it seems like things would have been a lot less painful if her husband had offered more help. Princess Diana was still a teenager when she and Prince Charles became a couple, and not only was she followed by pretty much every camera in Great Britain, but her sense of self and her relationship with food drastically changed. Diana is reported to have lost an extreme amount of weight before her wedding, going from a 27-inch waist to a 23-inch waist, and she quickly developed bulimia. Her eating disorder has been linked to her sense of isolation as well as her deteriorating relationship with Prince Charles, and she later spoke about it with the BBC.
When no one listens to you, or you feel no one's listening to you, all sorts of things start to happen. For instance, you have so much pain inside yourself that you try and hurt yourself on the outside.
Diana said that people around her saw her cries for help as attention-seeking, but all she wanted was to get better.
I didn't like myself. I was ashamed that I couldn't cope with the pressures.
Possibly the worst-kept secret throughout Princess Diana's marriage to Prince Charles was his infidelity. Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles had been together for years, and although she was not the ideal person for him to marry in the eyes of the royal family, their relationship continued. So it really should come as no shock that Diana fell into the arms of another man, and that just so happened to be her security guard. Diana and her bodyguard, Barry Manicky, were rumored to have a serious romantic relationship. Diana was even recorded saying that she would be, quote, quite happy to give all this up and to just go off and live with him, and he kept saying he thought it was a good idea too. Manicky was removed from Diana's security detail in 1986 and died in 1987 during a motorcycle accident. At the beginning of their marriage, Princess Diana and Prince Charles looked like they were living the fairy tale dream. Who wouldn't want to marry a prince? But the romantic situation that looked amazing from the outside was really just filled with two people who had nothing in common. And former royal household employee and relationship expert Karen Mooney shared that the couple was doomed from the start. Mooney told The Sun, they had nothing in common. She was in awe of him and he was the Prince of Wales. It was a bit like a fairy tale for her, but of course it ended up being completely the reverse. Princess Diana and Prince Charles's marriage ultimately came to a tragic end. After a lengthy separation, they finally got divorced, but that came with some immense losses for Diana. For one thing, much of the security and privacy that Diana had been granted as a royal were taken away. She was stripped of her royal title, her pride certainly took a hit, and her public dignity was in tatters. For starters, there was the matter of her royal title. Diana was formerly known as Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales. When she got divorced from Charles, he made a point of stripping her title away from her. This hurt for a number of reasons. First, Queen Elizabeth reportedly was fine with Diana keeping her title, but it was Charles who pushed for her to give it up. Second, it meant that Diana would have to curtsy to her ex-husband, the royal family, and to her sons. Ouch. As part of the divorce repercussions, Diana also lost her police protection. She was only protected while attending public events, but she was essentially at the whim of any danger that came her way. Mental health was not something that was talked about in 1980s Great Britain, and it certainly was not something that the royal family addressed. So it came as a shock when Diana Spencer addressed her mental health problems in public for the first time, and she revealed that she wasn't given any help or guidance from the royal family throughout her struggles. She said in a 1995 interview with the BBC, "Well, maybe I was the first person ever to be in this family who ever had a depression or was ever openly tearful, and obviously that was daunting because if you've never seen it before, how do you support it?" She went on to share that her depression was used to paint her in an unsympathetic light, giving her a reputation in the media that she struggled to shake off.
Well, it gave everybody a wonderful new label. It's Diana's unstable and Diana's mentally imbalanced.
But Diana's candidness, although tragic, had a lasting impact on mental health in Great Britain. It's commonly regarded that Diana's openness allowed for a new public perspective on mental health and eating disorders. This comes as a tragic shock, but Princess Diana reportedly felt that Prince Charles was ashamed of Prince Harry. Yes, you read that correctly. As noted by Vogue, friends and family of Diana shared that Charles's reaction to Harry was less than fatherly. Just hours after Diana came home after giving birth to Harry, Charles went and played in a polo match. To make the situation even more tragic, Charles reportedly complained at the time that Harry, quote, looked like a Spencer and said that his red hair was a dead giveaway. It's hard to know just how Harry's relationship with his father progressed later in his life, but Harry did give some incredible insight into his fractured bond with Charles. In a March 2021 sit-down with Oprah Winfrey, Harry shared that Charles had stopped taking his calls. Considering their history, it makes us wonder if Diana would be surprised at Harry and Charles' modern-day relationship. In 1995, Diana Spencer turned to the press to share the darker side of her fairy tale story, and the results scandalized a nation. The sit-down interview that she did with the BBC still marks one of the most expository admissions against the royal family, and Princess Diana really did not hold back. She talked about her mental health, her eating disorder, and the struggles she faced within the royal institution, including Charles' adultery.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
The interview marked one of the saddest parts of Diana's life as she faced the media alone. Perhaps what makes Diana's 1995 interview that much more tragic are the parallels between it and the interview that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle did with Oprah Winfrey in 2021. After abuse from the British tabloids and eerily similar treatment from the royal family, Harry and Meghan stepped back from their roles and leveled some very serious claims about racism and favoritism within the royal family.
Touching back on what you were asking, what my mum would think of this, I think she saw it coming.
Princess Diana's life really began to unravel in the latter half of the 1990s. She gave the expository interview with the BBC, her marriage came to an end, and unfortunately, she experienced a tragic falling out with her son, Prince William. As noted by Vanity Fair, Diana's friend Simone Simmons shared that Diana regretted the interview because of what it did to her relationship with William. Simmons said of William's interview reaction, "William was absolutely livid. Of course, it was in all the papers, and William told me he was teased at school because of it. He felt really bad for his mom because of what she had gone through, but he was furious with her." Simmons also shared that Diana only told William about the interview after it had been recorded, leading to more tension between them. Simmons shared, "The weekend after it went out, they had a big row at Kensington Palace. William was furious and Diana was distraught. I was there the day after she spoke to him, and Diana was in a terrible state." Princess Diana's storied and difficult life came to a tragic end when she was killed in a car crash on August 31st, 1997. She was just 36 years old. At the time of the accident, Diana was in Paris, France, accompanied by her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, her bodyguard, and her driver, Henri Paul. The 4 were rushing through a tunnel trying to escape paparazzi when the car collided with a pillar. Fayed and Paul were found dead at the scene, and Diana was pronounced dead at 6 a.m. that morning after having been transported to the hospital. Her bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, survived after enduring serious injuries. The world went into a state of shock in reaction to the news. Flowers began to pile up in front of Buckingham Palace the following morning, and hundreds of mourners gathered at Kensington Palace. The People's Princess, as Diana was often called, was survived by her 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, who were 15 and 12 at the time. To make matters even more tragic, Diana Spencer was reportedly not going to be given a public funeral by the royal family. Queen Elizabeth reportedly wanted Princess Diana's funeral to be a private gathering without the pomp and circumstance of a public ceremony, but outcry from the British people mounted. It took the palace 5 days to make a statement about Diana's death, which incurred a huge amount of public backlash. It appeared as though the palace bowed to public pressure because Diana was eventually given the royal funeral that so many were demanding. Diana's funeral saw massive crowds lining the streets, and it was watched worldwide by about 2.5 billion people. Her funeral consisted of a viewing at St. James's Palace and a formal ceremony at Westminster Abbey. Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, delivered the eulogy and all but blamed the royal family for her death. Of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this: a girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age.
Princess Diana had dreams of starting a new life in California. She also wanted to make the world better through her humanitarian work. But details behind Diana's death reveal why those dreams were cut tragically short. Several accounts from the night that Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed died have insisted on one thing. Fayed was set to propose to Diana and had given her a $200,000 diamond ring that very day. While there was no confirmation that Fayed had given Diana the ring with the intent of marriage, there has been intense speculation that he did. Michael Cole, at the time a spokesperson for the Fayed family, later lamented to the Washington Post, "What that ring meant, we shall probably never know. If the planet lasts for another 1,000 years, people will still wonder about its significance." Express also supported this theory and noted in February 2021 that a receipt for an engagement ring was found in Fayed's flat. The ring was reportedly inscribed with the words, "Dis-moi oui," or "Tell me yes." Author Martin Gregory also told the outlet that Fayed was set to propose, though it's unknown if Diana would have accepted, as the pair had only been dating for a handful of months when they died. Princess Diana was interviewed by the BBC's Martin Bashir 2 years before she died. The interview was truly a unique one for a member of the royal family, as Diana bared all. She spoke about affairs she engaged in while married to King Charles III, and about the affairs he had as well.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Diana detailed how these relationships made her feel, as well as her role in the royal family. She also admitted to self-harm and bulimia during the interview. Ultimately, the interview and the subsequent fallout led to Queen Elizabeth II telling Diana and Charles they had to divorce. Years later, an inquiry into the interview revealed that Bashir went to extraordinary and unsavory lengths to secure the interview in the first place. The BBC's Tom Mangold told journalist Mark Williams-Thomas that Bashir worked with the state media's graphic designer to forge bank statements that convinced an employee that Diana's brother had sold royal stories to the media. These bank statements were used in part to get the interview with Diana in the first place. Diana never found out the truth about the interview that caused such turmoil in her life. Her son Prince William vocalized his support for the inquiry into the interview in November 2020, expressing his hope that what really happened would be revealed.
These failings, identified by investigative journalists, not only let my mother down and my family down, they let the public down too.
In his 2003 book, A Royal Duty, Princess Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, revealed a number of secrets and behind-the-scenes details about Diana's final weeks and months. Burrell believed strongly that Diana planned to leave Europe and live in the United States, specifically in Malibu, California, and that she even planned to move into the former home of Julie Andrews with her sons Prince William and Prince Harry. Burrell added that Diana believed William and Harry would thrive in California, and that the royal family would have let the young boys spend part of their lives in the United States. Burrell told Good Morning America, "Princess Diana's not going to be king. Neither are her kids going to be queens. Why couldn't they come and spend a portion of their time in America?" Decades after her death, her son Prince Harry and his bride Meghan Markle would go on to settle in California as a home base of sorts while traveling to and from Britain. Another tragic element about Princess Diana's too short life is that she and her brother Charles Spencer reportedly weren't getting along well at the time of her death. In fact, Paul Burrell also wrote in his book that the two hadn't been close for about a decade. Yet, when Diana died, Charles, ironically, was the one who ended up with access to her estate, and who made several decisions that even Diana's sons reportedly disagreed with. One such decision was the transfer of Diana's wedding dress to the Spencer family home, which Burrell said Prince William was opposed to. Burrell told Good Morning America, "They have not inherited their mother's estate yet, so in the meantime, guess who's in charge? The Spencers." Burrell also told the media outlet that Diana had asked to live at her family's estate, but that her brother had told her no. As Burrell put it to Good Morning America, "It was his flesh and blood, for goodness sakes. He found a place for her when she died, but he couldn't find a place for her when she was alive." Princess Diana is known for changing the face of the royal family and is credited with being a force for good for the institution of the monarchy itself. Emma Hart, who directs the McNeil Center for Early American Studies, told Penn Today that Diana pushed the royal family to move into the 21st century. Hart also noted that Diana had an impact on her sons beyond the handful of years she got to spend with them. Hart told Penn Today, both her sons married women who have played a similar role. Neither Kate nor Meghan has aristocratic blue blood, something that would have been unthinkable for the heir to the throne spouse even 40 years ago. In addition to her impact on the social structure of the monarchy, Diana had extended her reach well beyond the confines of Buckingham Palace. She is remembered for working with patients with AIDS to this day.
She shook hands with the patients and myself.
As Hart explained to Penn Today, perhaps one of Diana's most important contributions was to show that the royal family could effect real change in the world. Journalist Mark Williams-Thomas made a documentary titled Diana, The Ultimate Truth in 2022. In the film, Williams-Thomas explored Diana's death and detailed how she passed away. At one point, Williams-Thomas spoke with cardiac surgeon Tom Treasure, who examined the details of the car accident that claimed Diana's life. Treasure explained that Diana, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt when she died, had suffered a heart injury in the crash. It appeared that Diana was sitting sideways in the car when it crashed, and that the injury itself wasn't necessarily fatal if the circumstances of Diana's death had been different. Treasure said in the documentary, Diana was taken from the car, and she was conscious when they took her out. Her circulation was in trouble, fast pulse, and low blood pressure, indicating internal bleeding. Medical professionals took Diana to Petit-Salpêtrière Hospital with additional injuries, including a concussion, broken arm, and cut thigh. Doctors at the hospital spent 2 hours working to repair Diana's heart, hoping to stimulate it to beat the way it should. Ultimately, she died at 4:53 a.m. on August 31st, 1997. Princess Diana wasn't the only one who died on August 30th and 31st. Her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, and the car's driver, Henri Paul, were killed instantly when the vehicle crashed. They also left behind family members who continue to mourn their loss. And some believe that Fayed might have even left an infant daughter. In February 1998, the Daily Record out of Scotland spoke to Diane Holliday, who claimed that her daughter Marnie was conceived during a nearly year-long affair that she and Fayed had. According to the paper, Marnie was born in the United States and placed for adoption, which Holliday claimed made Fayed angry. She went on to state that Fayed gave her £75,000 after she told him she was pregnant. Holliday also claimed that she and Fayed both understood their relationship was not rooted in love for one another. Despite that, Fayed paid for her older children to attend school and told her she didn't need to worry about getting pregnant because of low sperm count. Fayed was initially pleased with her pregnancy. He reportedly didn't argue when she said she'd get an abortion. Holliday changed her mind, and Marnie was born in November 1996. Dodi Fayed's family was plunged into intense grief following his tragic passing alongside Princess Diana. In December 2020, Dodi's younger sister, Camilla Fayed, spoke to The Sun about her family's experience following her older brother's death. Camilla, who was 12 years old when Dodi died, told the outlet, "For my dad, like any parent losing a child, it was horrific. And as it is for any family that experiences loss, it was heartbreaking." She went on to add that the family had to contend with the ultra-public nature of Dodi and Diana's deaths, which impacted their ability to cope behind closed doors as a family. Camilla added that it's not possible for the deaths to feel like something that can be moved on from. She told The Sun, "It's never going to be distant because it's obviously affected my family in such a profound way." There are two significant factors that led to the deaths of Princess Diana, Dodi Fayed, and Henri Paul on that late August night in 1997. Paul, the driver of the car, was well over the legal limit for alcohol. On top of that, the trio's car was heavily pursued by photographers on motorbikes who were driving recklessly and contributed to Paul's loss of control. In the days following Diana's death, the paparazzi had been waiting for Diana and Fayed for hours before they headed out for their final trip. The first photographer had stationed themselves outside the Ritz around 5:30 p.m. that night, and more showed up after Diana went shopping down the Champs-Élysées that evening. The pair had already ended their vacation early due to paparazzi intrusion. They made plans to travel approximately 30 minutes away for their last night in the city. Fayed asked his regular driver to take a separate car in an attempt to foil the waiting photographers. Paul was added to the journey at the last minute, and he ultimately lost control of the car in the tunnel at the Pont de l'Alma. Ultimately, blood analysis found that Paul was well over the legal limit the night of the fateful crash.
An estranged grandfather? No contact with their cousins? A grandma they'll never meet? Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's children Archie and Lilibet might be royal, but they've also been through a lot. After Prince Harry and Meghan Markle left the royal family, they sat down for a bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey, in which they discussed life behind the palace walls. In the 2021 interview, the couple made some shocking claims. One thing that really raised viewers' eyebrows was Meghan's allegation that some royal family members had made some negative comments about Prince Archie's skin colour.
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Meghan also seemed to insinuate that because Archie is biracial, the palace denied him a title.
So we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title.
When asked to name who made the comments about Archie's skin colour, neither Harry nor Meghan was forthcoming, saying it would cause a lot of damage. Harry did, however, tell Winfrey that neither Queen Elizabeth II nor Prince Philip made the aforementioned remarks about Archie's skin colour. It's worth noting that Archie did receive a royal title after King Charles III ascended the throne. Prince Archie's first few years were anything but easy. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry went through an incredibly stressful time before and after Archie's birth. During the Oprah Winfrey interview, Meghan shared that she had suicidal thoughts while she was pregnant with Archie, but that she wasn't allowed to get the help she needed.
And I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
When Archie was still a baby, Meghan and Harry embarked on a royal tour. While the family was in South Africa, a heater in Archie's room caught fire. Luckily, he was downstairs with his nanny at the time. Meghan was understandably shaken, but revealed on the first episode of her Archetypes podcast that she had to simply continue with royal engagements as if nothing happened. After the Sussexes left the royal family behind, Meghan and Harry stayed in Vancouver for a short while. However, it became clear rather quickly that they would not catch a break across the pond. Shortly after relocating, Meghan was followed by a photographer while she was out at a park with Archie. Paparazzi reportedly surrounded the couple's home and tried to take pictures of them and Archie inside with long-range lenses. Even though Archie spent some of his childhood in the UK, King Charles has reportedly only seen him a few times. Lilibet, on the other hand, has only seen her grandfather once. Charles's relationship with Prince Harry might be fraught, but it's said that the monarch adores his youngest grandchildren and was delighted when Archie was born. Lilibet first got to meet her grandfather in person in 2022 when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle attended some of Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. These days, however, Charles only gets to see his grandchildren over FaceTime. Royal commentator Michael Cole told the Daily Mail, "The antipathy between Prince Harry and his wife Meghan and the royal family has created a deep divide that makes normal family relationships so fraught as to be almost impossible." He added that Harry's actions since he left the monarchy have only contributed to the family divide and, as a result, the divide his children now experience between them and their extended family in the UK. Cole also criticised the Sussexes for failing to baptise Lilibet in the UK when they visited for the Platinum Jubilee. Instead, the princess was baptised in the US with none of the royals present. Royal experts have many opinions on how Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet may or may not feel about their estrangement from the royal family when they're older. Former royal reporter Jenny Bond told OK that Archie and Lilibet will eventually be curious about their family history, and it might be a little jarring for them to realise what they could have been a part of. She said in the interview, "When your heritage is one of the most famous families in the world, it will undoubtedly seem rather odd and perhaps sad that you hardly know or remember them." Princess Diana's tragic death continues to echo throughout the monarchy to this day, and ever since Prince Harry and Prince William welcomed children of their own, one can't help but imagine what a lovely grandmother Diana would have been. Archie and Lilibet will also grow up simply hearing stories about their late grandmother. In Harry and Meghan's Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan, the couple noted that Diana is very much a part of their children's lives. A photograph of the late princess hung in the nursery at the time.
That's your grandma Diana.
Aside from barely seeing their grandfather King Charles, Archie and Lilibet also have no contact with their maternal grandfather, Thomas Markle. Meghan Markle's relationship with her father disintegrated completely after he staged photos for the paparazzi in the lead-up to Meghan and Harry's wedding and then failed to show up to escort Meghan down the aisle on the big day. After a personal letter sent to Thomas was leaked to the press, Meghan broke all contact with him. And yes, Meghan's father has admitted that he was the one who leaked the letter to the press. Archie and Lilibet have, as far as we know, never met Thomas Markle, and neither has Prince Harry. Thomas doesn't appear to understand why he's been denied meeting his grandchildren, telling Good Morning Britain that he was very upset about the whole affair.
This is a cruel thing to do to a grandparent.
He also accused Meghan of changing and exerting her influence on Harry. Thomas told the outlet that he wasn't planning on taking legal action to see Archie and Lilibet because he didn't want to involve them in so much drama.
I don't want to involve my grandchildren as pawns in a game.
In addition to their grandfathers, Archie and Lilibet are also pretty much estranged from their cousins in the UK. Archie barely spent any time with Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, and it's not clear whether Lilibet has ever met them. According to some reports, Prince Harry tries to stay in contact with his niece and nephews, with Charlotte apparently sending Harry and her cousins gifts from time to time. According to royal expert Tom Quinn, Meghan is worried about her children's non-existent relationship with their cousins. Quinn told The Mirror, Meghan loves the idea of having a big happy family and hates it when people describe her childhood and her family as dysfunctional. She's terrified history is going to repeat itself. He also claimed that one of Meghan's friends told him that the Duchess is concerned about her kids blaming her for their lack of a relationship with their cousins. Lilibet shares a very special bond with her late great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth II.
Pundits will know that the Queen's childhood nickname had been Lilibet, and Prince Harry and Meghan's choice of name for their daughter was an ode to the monarch. Because Lilibet was born in the United States, she didn't get to meet her great-grandmother in person until about a year later when Harry and Meghan visited the UK for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. A source told People that Harry and Meghan introduced the Queen to her new great-grandchild in a video call shortly after her birth. When the Queen finally got to meet her youngest great-grandchild in person during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, it made for a tender moment. Harry hinted at this first meeting in a statement he released after the Queen's death, saying that he would always treasure it, writing, "I cherish these times shared with you, and the many other special moments in between." Thanks to the fact that their parents are insanely famous, Archie and Lilibet have been captured in several paparazzi shots. Poor Archie was just a baby when photographers first snapped photos of him with his mother, Meghan Markle. Archie's early childhood was fraught with eager paparazzi that went to incredible lengths to take photographs of him and his parents. Meghan and Prince Harry went into great detail about this horrifying time in their Netflix documentary Harry and Meghan. Paparazzi tried to film the couple and their baby son from helicopters and boats and followed them by car wherever they went. Some paparazzi even made holes in the security fence that surrounded the couple's Vancouver residence in order to spy on them. While Lilibet's childhood has arguably been a lot less dramatic, the little royal has also been snapped by the paparazzi. Prince Harry was out and about with Lilibet on his hip in Montecito, California, when eagle-eyed photographers spotted the prince and his daughter and snapped away.
They just wanted to be free. They wanted to be free to love and be happy.
King Charles III's coronation was a historic moment, but it's an event Archie and Lilibet missed out on, even though they were invited. Speculation was rife whether or not the king would even extend an invitation to his estranged son and his family. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle did indeed receive an invite, but only Harry accepted. The palace revealed this information in a statement saying that, while Harry would be in attendance at the coronation ceremony, Meghan would be staying behind in California with their 2 children. Royal commentator Victoria Murphy told ABC News, "Meghan not coming can absolutely be interpreted as a sign that not all is resolved between the Sussexes and the royal family. There is kind of a partial endorsement from the Sussexes with Harry going." Charles's coronation coincided with Archie's 4th birthday. While this likely played a part in Meghan and Harry's decision to keep the children at home, co-host of the royally obsessed podcast Rachel Bowie told USA Today that Meghan probably forfeited the event out of concern for the media scrutiny that would surely have followed her and the children's visit. Bowie said, "The royals can choose the coronation date, but Archie can't choose his birthday. From the parent perspective, which Meghan makes very clear, that's one of her key roles and the thing that she values most. That's something that she likely doesn't want to miss."
No, I just want them to be happy.
Mockery, media attacks, and a shocking diagnosis. Carole and Michael Middleton's story proves that life isn't always easy when you've hit the royal jackpot. In the tabloids, Carole and Michael Middleton are often portrayed as a typical middle-class couple. The reality is, though, that Princess Catherine lived a pretty lavish life before marrying Prince William. Her parents sent her to pricey boarding schools and housed her in a £1.5 million home. Carole and Michael could afford a comfortable lifestyle after launching their party decoration business in 1987, but they also sat on a comfortable family inheritance. But this inheritance had a dark side. The Middletons were able to found their company and fund their children's education because of a trust fund that had been set up generations before. Apparently, Catherine's great-great-grandfather Francis Lupton came into a £1 million fortune that he'd expected to split among his 5 children. During World War I, however, all 3 of Frank's sons were killed. Only his 2 daughters, Olive and Anne Lupton, survived to inherit the money. Their share was worth over £2 million in today's currency. Anne Lupton never married, meaning that what was left of her fortune was also passed on to Olive's children, including Catherine's grandfather. Although this money was eventually able to benefit the Middleton children, its roots are profoundly tragic. In many ways, Carole and Michael Middleton benefited from an old money fortune. However, this did not prevent Prince William's friends from mocking them for their lower social standing. Unlike many members of the British upper crust, Carole and Michael had neither titles nor a historic family home. In fact, Carole Middleton was famously descended from James Harrison, a coal miner based in northern England. When the prince started dating the future Princess Catherine, his circle was quite ruthless in their treatment of his middle-class girlfriend. Many of his friends were particularly snobbish about the fact that Catherine's mother had previously worked as a flight attendant. Royal expert Katie Nicholl explained on Vanity Fair's Dynasty podcast that when Kate would go clubbing with William in London, they'd all whisper "doors to manual" to each other.
Well, obviously that is a bit of a put down. It's a bit of a derogatory reference to Carole's career as an air hostess.
Prince William's posh friends weren't the only people who disparaged the Middletons for their middle-class background. The British press was arguably no better. During William and Princess Catherine's courtship, many commentators argued that Carole and Michael Middleton were not classy enough to be the parents of a future Queen consort. One piece in the Daily Mail even quoted a courtier who said, "Put bluntly, the Queen seems to like Kate's father, Michael, but the courtiers sense that there are big question marks over the mother. She is pushy, rather twee, and incredibly middle class." Following William and Catherine's temporary breakup in 2007, royal commentator James Whittaker described the match as a mistake in an article for The Mirror. His justification? Carole and Michael were not from a good enough family to produce a future queen. He wrote, "Kate, delightful as she might be, was not from suitable stock to be our future queen. I just believe that evolving from a middle-class background is hardly the best training to becoming Her Majesty." As if all the bad press was not humiliating enough, the Middletons were portrayed quite negatively on Netflix's The Crown. The series dedicated much of its 6th season to Prince William and Princess Catherine's relationship. Carole Middleton's character made several appearances, as played by Eve Best. Unfortunately, her portrayal was not particularly flattering. Throughout season 6, Carole Middleton's character seems very invested in climbing the social ladder. In one scene, she tells a young Catherine how excited she was when she met her future husband, as his grandmother had known the Queen's aunt.
I felt like the luckiest woman in the world.
Unfortunately, this depiction of Carole as a pushy, status-obsessed mother is not necessarily faithful to reality. The Crown, after all, is fiction, even if some people believe everything they see on the show. In 2020, Princess Diana's brother Charles Spencer said, "I find Americans tell me they have watched The Crown as if they have taken a history lesson. Well, they haven't." Perhaps the most shocking invasion of Carole Middleton's privacy was carried out by the British tabloids. The mother of 3 has suffered considerably at the hands of the media. She has been stalked by the paparazzi, mocked by tabloid journalists, and even hacked by a major media organisation. In 2014, the Daily Mail reported that the News of the World had hacked Carole's phone as part of an attempt to gain insight into the lives of British royals. Carole was far from the only victim of this strategy too. Tabloid journalists hacked Princess Catherine's phone 155 times, while Prince William was hacked 35 times. Although it's unclear whether any of the contents of Carole's phone were used to inform News of the World articles, the fallout of the hacking scandal led to the outing of private and sensitive information, much of which revolved around the Middletons and their daughter. Carole and Michael Middleton have always been huge fans of the Christmas holiday. As the former owners of a party business, they revelled in decorating their home. Some years, they've even been known to purchase multiple Christmas trees. Writing on her Party Pieces Instagram in 2021, Carole shared, "Once again this year we plan to have 2 Christmas trees, one for the children to decorate and one which I do myself." Despite the Middletons' enthusiasm for the holiday season, they haven't always been invited to spend Christmas with their grandchildren. As mandated by royal protocol, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis have historically spent Christmas at Sandringham with their late great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth II. Unfortunately, Carole and Michael were rarely included in the festivities at Sandringham, although they have been invited to join the royals at St Mary Magdalene Church for Christmas morning service. This goes to show just how much the Middletons have had to sacrifice in order to see their daughter take the crown. The Middletons' Party Pieces business was successful for years.
And it was a very clever idea. It filled a gap. This is a very affluent area, and there were lots of children, lots of people in the area that just wanted that service.
But things went downhill when the company started operating at a loss, accruing hundreds of thousands of pounds in debt. The trouble reportedly began back in 2019 when Carole decided to step away from her company's day-to-day operations. She reportedly placed control of the business into the hands of a management team that did not necessarily act responsibly. Before long, Party Pieces began to accrue debt, and as the pandemic set in, the enterprise accepted a £219,000 COVID-19 loan from the Royal Bank of Scotland. This, in turn, caused something of a scandal, as the money offered by RBS had been funded by British taxpayers. One source close to the situation told The Standard, "It definitely doesn't reflect well on the royals, but Kate will mostly just be worried about her mother, as the two have always been incredibly close. Carole will be working hard to put this right." Despite the Middletons' effort to rectify the situation with their failing company, Party Pieces officially went out of business during the summer of 2023. According to a report in the Daily Mail, by the time the company had officially failed, its debts had totaled a staggering £2.6 million. For Carole Middleton in particular, this was devastating. A friend told the outlet, "Carole is understandably upset and deeply disappointed in this situation." Although Carole largely blamed outside managers for the failure of her company, she had to admit that it was her responsibility for having hired them in the first place. As the same friend told the Daily Mail, Carole believes in accountability and accepts she had been a little naive to step back and trust someone else to run the business she had spent decades nurturing, and it's been desperately sad to see the company sold off in this way. In the end, Carole and Michael were forced to sell their business. After searching for the right buyer, Carole decided to sign a deal with the Teddy-tastic Bear Company. Moreover, it was reported that the 12 employees who worked for Party Pieces were able to remain in their current positions. Carole and Michael, however, will be out of the business for good. Only the 2 eldest Middleton children have achieved any notable amount of fame. Princess Catherine is, of course, the Princess of Wales, while her younger sister, Pippa, was once ranked Britain's most desirable single by Tatler.
What is it about Pippa Middleton that we just can't get over?
The 3rd Middleton child, James, has largely avoided the limelight, and he has also struggled considerably over the years. Writing for the Daily Mail in 2019, James described his battle with depression. He said, "I know I'm richly blessed and live a privileged life, but it did not make me immune to depression. It is an illness, a cancer of the mind." For Carole and Michael Middleton, it would have been difficult to watch their son endure this mental illness. During the height of his struggles, James admitted he ignored his parents' messages of love and support. He revealed, "I couldn't communicate, even with those I loved best, my family and close friends. Their anxious texts grew more insistent by the day, yet they went unanswered as I sank progressively deeper into a morass of despair." Luckily, Carole and Michael's youngest child was eventually able to seek psychological support. He said, "I knew if I accepted help, there would be hope. It was a tiny spark of light in the darkness." Less than a year after being forced to sell their company, Carole and Michael Middleton received the news no parent wants to hear. Their daughter, Princess Catherine, had been diagnosed with cancer. According to royal expert Jenny Bond, this diagnosis likely proved quite painful for the Middleton family. Speaking to the Mirror, Bond explained, "We should also spare a thought for another mother in this, Carole Middleton. Catherine may be 42, but she is still Carole's little girl, and to watch her go through this and withstand the bullying pressure to explain must have been desperately upsetting." In the weeks following Catherine's diagnosis, Carole appeared to take on a greater role in her daughter's life, driving her around London and helping her take care of the kids. She's even made an effort to spend time with Prince William after he and Carole were spotted having a drink together in a pub. One palace insider told People magazine, "Her parents are an enduring factor in the upbringing of their grandchildren, and they will be a reassuring presence when she goes back to Windsor to recuperate."
Queen Camilla's nearly lifelong love for King Charles left a lot of damage in its wake. From being labeled one of the most despised people in Britain to making an enemy of a monarch, these are the sad details of the controversial Queen's life. While the marriage between Camilla and King Charles is the second for each of them, the couple had met long before each of their first marriages. In fact, Camilla and Charles first met back in 1970 through a mutual friend. Both Camilla and Charles were in their early 20s at the time. While the couple hit it off right away, Charles' service in the Royal Navy made a serious relationship difficult. At the same time, they were reportedly skeptical that the relationship could work over the long term, since Camilla didn't come from an aristocratic family. As such, the couple's relationship ended in heartbreak in 1971. Camilla eventually married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, and Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in 1981. However, it was clear that the two still loved one another. On top of that, both experienced problems in their marriages that prompted them to reunite several times over the years. Their first alleged affair was in the late 1970s when Camilla was married, and the second was in the mid-1980s after Charles had married Diana. To make matters even more complicated, both Camilla and Charles were raising children with their respective spouses by 1984. In 1992, then Prince Charles and Princess Diana separated. While Buckingham Palace insisted the two didn't have plans to divorce, the public was understandably skeptical considering the gossip surrounding Camilla, Charles, and their affair. In fact, Diana had even confronted Camilla by this point. During an interview from National Geographic's Diana, Her True Story, Diana says she told Camilla, "I know what's going on between you and Charles, and I just want you to know that. Don't treat me like an idiot."
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
The fact is that Camilla and Charles never quit their years-long affection for one another, and this ultimately ended in Camilla's own divorce. However, as the prince's marriage was much more public, his separation from Diana angered many people. What's more, Camilla was cast as the reason why their marriage fell apart, and the media even labeled her Britain's most hated woman. However, all this publicity didn't force any quick divorces. While Diana and Charles separated in 1992, Charles didn't admit to cheating on Diana until 1994, and they didn't officially divorce until 1996. For her part, Camilla didn't divorce Andrew Parker Bowles until 1995. While then Prince Charles didn't publicly confirm his relationship with Camilla until 1994, leaked phone calls in 1993 all but confirmed it. At this time, Charles and Princess Diana were already separated, which Diana stated was due to his affair with Camilla. However, the phone call recordings added an embarrassing layer on top of the complicated situation. Nicknamed Camillagate and Tampongate, the leaked phone calls reportedly took place in late 1989 and seemed to highlight a full-fledged affair while both Camilla and Charles were still married to other people. As the name suggests, the phone calls were intimate, with the couple also declaring their love for one another, as well as making playful jokes. The moment was even significant enough to be dramatized in Season 5 of The Crown on Netflix.
I'm in the bedroom.
In bed?
On top of it.
Lucky old bed.
Throughout their long history, this was likely one of the most mortifying moments for Camilla and Charles. By the mid-1990s, it was obvious that the marriage between Prince Charles and Princess Diana was broken, and that Camilla was there to stay. One person who didn't seem to accept this at the time was Charles' mother, Queen Elizabeth II. According to People, Charles was so careful around his mother when it came to Camilla that he only approached her about the relationship after Diana's death in 1997. However, the Queen's response was less than what Charles and Camilla were likely hoping for. According to royal biographer Tom Bower's 2018 book Rebel Prince, The Power, Passion, and Defiance of Prince Charles, the Queen harshly criticized her son's unfaithful behavior and refused to forgive Camilla for her part in the disintegration of Charles and Diana's marriage. Although she eventually accepted Camilla, Elizabeth also reportedly called her that wicked woman and left Charles in tears. While it's unclear how Camilla reacted to this meeting, it's hard to feel positive about not being on your future mother-in-law's good side, whether or not she's a monarch. It took Queen Elizabeth and the public quite a while to warm up to Camilla, and once they were together, Camilla's relationship with Charles progressed slowly from an onlooker's perspective. In fact, despite their years-long affair, Charles and Camilla didn't appear in public as a couple until 1999. According to People, the year after that, the Queen had lunch with the couple, which many saw as a symbolic gesture of her approval of the relationship. Camilla and Charles eventually started living together in 2003, taking up residence at Clarence House. Around then, the public was getting used to Camilla and Charles as a couple, and it seemed that the Queen was as well. In 2005, the two finally got married with the Queen's approval. While Elizabeth technically accepted the marriage between Charles and Camilla, since both Charles and Camilla had been divorced, neither Elizabeth nor her husband Prince Philip attended the ceremony for religious reasons. However, the Queen did hold a reception for the couple instead. According to a 2021 interview with the BBC, Queen Camilla has a family history of osteoporosis, and she even served as the president of the Royal Osteoporosis Society for several years before her coronation. Despite her very public relationship with the affliction, Queen Camilla has never disclosed whether she actually has the bone condition herself. However, in 2010, some speculation came about regarding the then Duchess's bone health. It all stemmed from an outdoor walk Camilla was said to be on when she slipped and fell, fracturing her fibula. According to The Guardian, Camilla was 62 years old at the time, and the accident occurred during an Easter vacation in Scotland. Whether or not Camilla herself has osteoporosis, the incident likely brought up memories of her mother's own battle with the illness. In a 2011 essay from Camilla, she wrote how her late mother, Rosalind Shand, lost 8 inches in height and could barely eat or breathe toward the end of her life as a result of her diagnosis. Camilla recalled, "I believe that the quality of her life became so dismal and her suffering so unbearable that she just gave up the fight and lost the will to live." Sadly, Camilla's mother passed away at the age of 72 in 1994. 2010 proved to be a year of frightening incidents for Queen Camilla. Several months after her fall in Scotland, she and the then Prince Charles found themselves in the middle of a violent protest. In December of that year, The couple were in London when student protesters attacked the Rolls-Royce they were riding in on their way to the London Palladium. Here, some of the protesters threw paint and rocks at the vehicle, even surrounding it at one point amid the chaos. According to The Guardian, a witness named Ben Kelsey reported that there were between 400 and 500 people protesting in the area. He explained, Charles and Camilla looked quite relaxed at first, but when they saw how many people there were, they began to get worried. A few seconds later, the area was packed with police. It was complete chaos. The reason for the chaotic scene Camilla and Charles found themselves in had to do with a controversial law regarding college tuition fees. While the student protest started peacefully, some of the participants became violent. In all, The Guardian reported that 38 people were injured, though Camilla and Charles were not counted among the wounded. A few years after Camilla's accident, her brother, Mark Shand, suffered a fatal fall. According to The Guardian, Shand was at a charity event in New York City in April 2014. After the event, he reportedly fell and hit his head. Shand was only 62 years old. Both Camilla and Charles released an official statement regarding the incident, which read, in part, "It is with deep sadness that we have to confirm that the Duchess of Cornwall's brother, Mark Shand, has today passed away in New York. Mr. Shand died in hospital as a result of a serious head injury which he sustained during a fall last night." The statement went on to highlight the immense pain the losses caused Camilla and her loved ones. Shand was Camilla's only brother and youngest sibling in her family. He was a writer, traveler, and conservationist who had founded a charity called Elephant Family, which aimed to help save Asian elephants. According to The Mirror, Camilla's eldest son, Tom Parker Bowles, divorced his wife in 2018 after nearly 13 years of marriage and 2 children. He fell in love with another woman named Alice Prokopi, who also had 3 children of her own. She was also a writer and a journalist. The two seemed to hit it off right away, and the relationship was getting serious. Tragically, though, Prokopi died from cancer just 2 years after they started dating. A friend of Parker Bowles told the Daily Mail that the pair had had a very happy relationship, and Bowles was heartbroken by the loss. The pain was felt throughout their family, as Camilla is reportedly very close to her eldest child. Another tragic detail of the circumstances surrounding Prokopi's death is that the cancer may have been missed due to lockdown measures related to the COVID-19 pandemic. A friend of Prokopi told the Daily Mail that Alice wasn't properly diagnosed until late into the summer of 2020, and by that point, it was too late to save her life. It's no secret that the relationship between Prince Harry and the rest of the royal family has been strained for several years. In 2020, Harry and his wife Meghan Markle left their duties as working royals and moved to California. However, since then, Harry has come out as a strong critic of his family, detailing many of their internal issues in his 2023 autobiography, Spare. In this memoir, Harry explores many details of his experience in the royal family, including what it felt like to be the second to his older brother, Prince William.
His life is planned out for him, whereas for the Spare, that's not really what you should do.
Parts of the book also reflect on the loss of Princess Diana and his complicated relationship with his father, King Charles. He wrote that Charles had allegedly even made a joke about his birth to Diana, referring to William as his heir and Harry as his spare. Harry wrote that after delivering his morbid comment, Charles went off to spend time with his, quote, girlfriend, who was presumably Camilla. She eventually met William and Harry after Diana's death and established a relationship with her stepsons. While writing about the period in which Camilla hired a public relations firm to help transform her reputation after her affair with Charles came to light, Harry referred to his stepmother as dangerous. When asked what he meant by this in an interview for 60 Minutes, he explained that made her dangerous because of the connections that she was forging within the British press. He elaborated that such an open exchange of information with the media would inevitably harm people, and reflected that he was ultimately one of the people it hurt.
It's been a tough year for the British royal family, to put it lightly. Here are all the difficulties 2024 has brought to the royals so far. On January 17th, their respective palaces announced that both King Charles III and Catherine, Princess of Wales, were being hospitalized for surgeries. The press release about Charles was pretty forthcoming about what he was dealing with. It stated, In common with thousands of men each year, the king has sought treatment for an enlarged prostate. Charles went in for his procedure the following week and left the hospital on January 29th. He took some time to recover afterward. Kate Middleton's surgery was definitely shrouded in more mystery. When it was announced, it had already taken place. Kensington Palace's press release referred to it as a planned abdominal surgery, but offered no specifics, other than that she would be recovering and unable to work as usual until around Easter. She also left the hospital on January 29th, but there was no footage of her doing so, leading to bubbling public speculation about her health.
This is much more concerning in that it must have been something very serious.
Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2023. She had a mastectomy to treat it, which led to cancerous moles being discovered. Ferguson announced that she had been diagnosed with malignant melanoma on January 21, 2024. Her representative gave a statement to People which read in part, "The Duchess wants to thank the entire medical team which has supported her, particularly her dermatologist, whose vigilance ensured the illness was detected when it was."
It's not a wake-up call, it's a new normal, is that you can never say you're cancer-free, but you can say that I'm doing well, Susanna.
On February 5th, as King Charles was still recovering from his prostate procedure, Buckingham Palace announced that he had also been diagnosed with cancer. The palace confirmed it wasn't prostate cancer, but did not specify what kind it was. Conflicting reports about Charles's health emerged over the following weeks. Some claimed he wasn't doing well at all, and others said he was energetic and in good spirits. He has yet to return to full-time work as of June 2024, but he had his first public-facing engagement after his diagnosis in April. On March 22nd, Catherine shared a video on her and her husband Prince William's official Instagram, X, and YouTube accounts announcing her own cancer diagnosis. After her surgery, tests showed she had had cancer, despite her and her doctors initially thinking otherwise.
My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
Princess Catherine's announcement came after months of rampant conspiracy theories about her whereabouts. Her last public appearance had been on Christmas Day 2023, and the limited information about her surgery had led to some wild conjecture to fill in the gaps.
No theory is a bad theory until proven otherwise. She's dead.
Attempts to quell the theorizing only seemed to make things worse. Namely, a photo shared on Mother's Day in the United Kingdom, March 10th, which showed Kate with her kids and was credited to Prince William. The Associated Press and other news agencies announced they wouldn't distribute the photo because it had been digitally altered. Kate herself took the blame for the edits, and that only got people talking more. Was a Kate body double hired to take her place? Did Kate leave because William cheated with his long-rumored mistress, Rose Hanbury? The cheating rumor became so prevalent that even late-night host Stephen Colbert dedicated part of his nightly monologue to it.
My heart goes out to poor Kate. Now let's dish the hot goss. I am ready to spill the tea!
Hanbury's lawyers even had to step in. In a statement to In Touch, they said, "We have written on our client's behalf to CBS and various other reputable media organizations to confirm that the allegation is false. How did the conspiracy theories about Kate get so out of control?" Disinformation researcher Melissa Ryan told Wired of the royals' PR machine, "They were dishonest, and then they put out at least one doctored photo. So of course, at that point, they're gonna lose all credibility." Princess Anne, King Charles's only sister, has long been the hardest working royal, but even she had to temporarily step away from her duties after a June 23rd incident at her home, Gatcombe Park, sent her to the hospital. News outlets noted that she had a concussion and other minor injuries which were in line with being kicked or otherwise hurt by a horse. The Telegraph also reported the concerning news that she had some memory loss, but she was able to return home on June 28th. Anne will have to wait for her doctor's go-ahead to continue her royal engagements. That's definitely a setback, considering how well-liked she is. In 2023, royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams told The Telegraph, "The public see Anne as someone who is grounded. I think the institution does need her very much." Then there's the Harry and Meghan of it all. Apparently, the rift between the British royal family and the Sussexes has not smoothed over. Reportedly, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle learned of Catherine, Princess of Wales' cancer diagnosis through her social media post. At least Charles told his younger son about his own cancer diagnosis. Harry said as much in an interview on Good Morning America.
I jumped on a plane and went to go and see him as soon as I could. Look, I love my family.
That said, Harry didn't see his brother William during that trip. When Harry was in the UK, again in May for the Invictus Games 10th anniversary event, he was unable to see his father. A representative for Harry told Page Six it was due to Charles's busy schedule, but other sources weren't so sure. The royal feud is still straining relationships, but things could be turning around, for Charles and Harry at least. On July 1st, New Idea reported that Charles might want to visit Harry, Meghan, and their children Archie and Lilibet in California. A source said, "This feud has gone on for far too long, and Charles is anxious to sort it out, but he knows it has to be on Harry and Meghan's home turf, particularly if he wants to see the grandchildren." Could the back half of 2024 be better for the royals than the first 6 months? Here's hoping.